TruthSeekah and or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah podcast.
Gargoyles, psychics, everything's ungodly. Dark savage.
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian.
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff.
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm TruthSeekah. This is the TruthSeekah podcast. Thank you guys for joining with me today. Everybody who's already in the chat room holding us down, watching us live on YouTube where we're streaming live. A lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff to talk about today. I'm going to try and do an overview of 100 episodes in. I'm going to attempt. I don't know how long that's going to take to give an overview and go back and look at some of the episodes and just give a quick commentary. Hopefully not go into too much detail so we can kind of breeze through it. I just thought it might be something cool. It'd be something that for some of the new people listening, there's episodes that you haven't heard yet, and some of them from people who maybe don't have really big names or big followings or whatever that you may skip over. And some of those are some of the best ones that I've done on the show. So I want to just kind of give an overview on some of these episodes, give a little bit of commentary. My relationship with some of these guests aren't really that good anymore. I'm not going to try to like drag people's names through the mud, but I will talk about my relationship with these guests who come on here. Like some people have who's been on the show with me. I've gotten death threats. I've gotten people threatening me with lawsuits and dragging my name through the mud. People telling their fans not to listen to me, to stay away. I'm going to try to give a little bit of background and commentary and just really be open with you guys about some of the people I've had on and some of the guests. So should be interesting. I'm not going to try to turn this into a gossip show because I know we can find like bad stuff on anybody, and that's totally not my intention to do that. But I'm going to give you guys some background on some of the guests and where we stand in relationship wise and stuff like that. I think that'll be fun just because you guys have been rocking with me for so long. And like I said, there's some gems out there, man, some shows that if you're new to the show, you probably haven't heard some of the older shows that we've done. And I'm excited. 100 episodes in. 100 episodes in. If you're listening to this on the podcast version, you have heard the 100th episode. So, but it's not released at the time of this. I'm hoping I have a goal for 100 patrons. 100 patrons at the 100th episode mark. So if you guys want to support my work, if you want to see me reach that goal, I'm only 3 patrons away. I'm at 97 patrons, and I'm either going to release the show tomorrow or Monday. So I'm believing for 100 patrons at episode 100. We need 3 more people to join at any level, anywhere from $1, $5, $10, whatever you want to do. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff over there for you. If you would like to support, you get my entire discography, all the new music I'm releasing, everything I'm putting out online right now. Most of that's already uploaded on Patreon. You get my entire discography, 10 plus albums. You do that and you get to download it all for any level of giving of support. You get extra episodes, you get some cool interviews, and I've been on other people's shows and we've done exclusive podcasts for their patrons, and they've given me permission to upload it for my patrons. So there's a bunch of cool stuff over there of just interviews and hanging out and stuff like that. So you get a lot of cool stuff. You also get access to something that's really cool right now. It's the School of the Mystics, something that we're doing every Thursday night, which is tonight we're doing at 7 p.m. Central. Every Thursday we're going over a course right now, and the course is Basic Training for the Prophetic Ministry. It's by Chris Valatin. Essentially learning how to hear the voice of God speaking to you through whatever he wants to, through people, through what we would call psychic abilities, the prophetic giftings in the Bible, they called spiritual giftings, word of wisdom, word of knowledge, utterances, going into trance states, speaking through dreams and visions. So we're doing a course right now. The course is pretty short as we do it. It's probably about 30 minutes long, but then it moves into activation with taking turns practicing prophesying over one another, and we pair off into groups, and trust me, it's been really good. If you're looking for community, you're looking to grow at any level of giving, for $1 you get access to that. So if you want to support what we're doing, make sure you head on over to patreon.com/TruthSeekah, and I appreciate all the support that I've been getting. 100 right at 100 patrons. My mind is blown, really is, man. My heart is open, and I'm excited about moving forward. I'm excited about people supporting something that I'm doing is working. It's resonating with people. So thank you guys for supporting my work. I want to give a shout out to the newest patron that I had just sign up, I believe yesterday, Matthew Abel. Welcome to the community, my brother. Thank you for supporting my work. Some of the last people here, we got Trey, Eugene Hammonds, Matthew Jorgensen, and Thomas Dudley. Man, thank you guys for supporting my work and believing in the vision. I couldn't do it without you guys. The show is free to consume. It's not free to produce. There's a lot of money that actually goes into making this happen on the back end and hosting. So give a quick shout out to everybody holding me down in the chat section. I see Allie Rideout. Allie Graham, how you doing, sister? She said, "What's up, Truth?" Awesome. Renee, Chris Bars, Joshua Fluman, Leo Henry, Andrew Jackson. What's up, fam? Y'all go ahead and drop a comment in the comment section if you're watching this live on YouTube. So phone lines are open if you guys want to join in a little bit later. We'll be taking your calls if you want to do that. So yeah, I guess we can go ahead and get started here. I'm gonna start at the latest episode. I also want to give another shout out. Sometimes people who aren't patrons, or sometimes people who are patrons, they send donations as well, and I want to make sure that I call their name out and just tell them thank you publicly. I want to say thank you to Austin Bruce for sending a generous donation this last month. Thank you guys for supporting my work. Again, me and my family, I'm doing this full time now, so thank you guys. Austin Bruce, thank you for your donation, brother. All right, that's out the way. Now, getting into the nitty gritty. I'm going to try to run through this stuff. 100 episodes in, we'll see how it works. Hopefully I can do this in one episode. Hopefully it won't take 2. We'll just see what happens. So here we go. Commentary. Number 99 listed on iTunes. The Death of Pyrex. Interview with Christian rapper Pyrex. What can I say about that episode? Pyrex is awesome. I don't even know because part of me wants to say the good and the bad about each episode. I'm just gonna talk, man. I love Pyrex. He's a Christian rapper. I love what he's doing. Got a couple songs with him. I don't even know how much background to give you guys, because there's some stuff man, we're just gonna roll with the punches, man. I don't even know how much to give, because there's a lot of personal stuff, and I don't want to just put all the I don't want to give everybody's dirt out there, man. I'll put it this way: Pyrex is awesome. Got an awesome story. That's a pretty good interview. I got to talk a little bit in that interview, but I will say that we got a couple songs together. We're supposed to have more. Pyrex was supposed to be on my new album, but the song didn't make it, and I didn't finish the song. Put it that way. So he's not. He was supposed to be on my new album, but he's not going to be on it. So. Not too many people like the song. A lot of my friends I let hear it. It just totally stylistically is really different. I love Pyrex. I love his old style. Let's say that. I love Pyrex's old style. Pyrex, if you're listening, we love it when you chop, when you rap fast. The new swag mumble rap stuff, we're not feeling it, bro. Go back to the old stuff, man. We love you. But yeah, I love Pyrex. I love what he's doing. That's just quick commentary on that. We're going to just breeze through these. I hope I'm not just going to be talking crap about everybody on each one. So, I'm going to say what comes to mind, right? What the first stuff that comes to my mind. Why hold back? Episode 98, Witchcraft and the Occult with Mars. Mars used to rap with the Insane Clown Posse. He was with a group called Dark Lotus, and really big into the occult, really big into witchcraft and all that kind of stuff. And one thing he pointed out that was when he went to Psychopathic Records and he was rapping with the Insane Clown Posse, they wanted to get into the dark evil stuff, and they would rap about it and put that kind of stuff in their music, horrorcore, and mixing witchcraft with it. But like Mars was really doing it. So they were just kind of using stories and parables about other people's lives and stuff. But Mars was really doing it, right? Mars was really in witchcraft. So he talks about his story on that episode. He's a really cool guy, real genuine guy. He wanted to do a second episode with me, but he wanted to kind of go in on Islam. He wanted to do a whole show like exposing Islam for being satanic and all kinds of stuff, so I didn't feel led to do that episode. Another thing that sticks out to me on that episode, at the very end, we had a caller who was calling in, and like, people look for truth and stuff, man. And if you're listening to this podcast, if you listen to my music, like, there's something greater that reaches out to you, man. So we had a caller call in, and he wanted like the real deal, and he wanted truth, and he was asking me about the Kundalini. And so we were talking about Jesus the whole time and talking about my testimony and Mars's testimony and evil spirits and stuff. So I wanted to give it to him raw. So he called in asking about the Kundalini, and I told him I kind of had a emotional moment, man. This a moment that I was vulnerable at the end of that show, where I told him, I said, the Kundalini is the Holy Spirit. You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing that when I talk about the Kundalini, when I talk about Tachyon, energy, chi energy, the pranayama, it's the Holy Spirit. I come from the Christian tradition, the Christian background. It's the same thing to me. I've done Kundalini yoga and all of this stuff, and it's the same spirit. It's beautiful. It's cleansing. It's a consciousness that communicates to you and through you. Very beautiful. But when the caller, I gave it to him straight up, and I kind of apologized for muddying the water, because for me, the Kundalini is the Holy Spirit. For some people, the Kundalini is demonic. The Kundalini will lead you to other people's work. So I have to be somewhat careful about mixing these terms and stuff, because it will lead you to, like, if I mention the Kundalini and it's just another word for the Holy Spirit for me, and for many of you guys watching, for some of you guys, that's a turnoff. Like, it's demonic, that's a turnoff. You're not going to go any further with me, those type of things. So there's some people who are like that. But, if I mention Kundalini, it may make you do research and start following people who are false teachers who will lead you down a path that I don't want you to go, and that you probably shouldn't go. So just because we talk about these terms are universal. For me, I study syncretism. I study what makes us the same. So, you got to be careful, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, the stuff you look into, and the people, like, you got to do your research, though. Don't just take anybody's word for it, whether it's me or Bill Donahue or somebody mentioned Carl Jung here in the chat section. So, you know what I'm saying? Just make sure you do your own research. And my stuff liberates people, my music, the teachings, the podcast. But at the same time, like, if you're not careful, like, it can take you down a rabbit hole, but it's good. It's good. It's good to kind of challenge your faith and your belief, and look in and not be so dogmatic and about your beliefs, and about being so as matter of fact. That's the contention I have with a lot of people, is they're so matter of fact. This is the only way, you're wrong. Those type of people, I don't really gel with those people anymore, because I've studied so much syncretism. I've studied so much of other religions, and it's just all, we're talking about the same thing, and I think there's grace that should be applied there. Okay. Episode 97, Breaking Free from Dark Energies. This was one where we were just talking about, this was a solo one that I did. It was a short one too. But I was talking about my relationship of coming out of the occult, and like coming out of some of the deep, dark stuff, and how like they don't play fair. They want to come back for you. Like, you're dealing with ancient spirits. That's why we got to be careful. Like, everything isn't beautiful. Everything isn't light and love like we want. There's some things we have to be careful of. There's people who don't have your best interest in mind. We have to be careful dealing with everyone, and we have to be discerning. So I was talking about these spirits and stuff, and people who are dealing with that. And we had a couple of people call in, some people who have been supporting my work for a while. And I've kind of just been open about my story. I don't have everything figured out. So for me there is some flip-floppage there, right? And I'll talk about Jesus and then talk about the Kundalini. A lot of this stuff is the same for me. And it's when I have to like get past my own dogma and stuff too. And this has been a process. And as we go through these episodes, it's been a process for me, right? Shout out to Christy Folks. She's watching right now. She just gave a donation on Super Chat. Thank you so much. But we had a couple ladies call in, and they wanted prayer, because they're kind of, it breeds, it's a breeding ground for being double-minded, because we're taught that there's a separation between Jesus and Kundalini. And this is I'm just throwing terms out there. There's separation between everything, they say. But, they're into the TruthSeekah podcast. They're into Manly P. Hall, Jordan Maxwell, whatever it is. They're called to these things that pique their interest in, I think, for good reason. But then you go to church and they say to stay away from all of this stuff, don't mess with it, and it breeds this level of double-mindedness. So, there were some ladies who called in, they wanted prayer. I said some prayers for them, and they felt the release, man. You know what I'm saying? But just going back and forth and just letting them know, look, it's okay. Like, God loves you regardless. You can't earn God's love. Nobody's, beloved of Him more than the next person. So episode 97, Breaking Free from Dark Energies, this is what I was talking about. 96, the testimony of an ex-hustler, interview with Illuminate. So Illuminate's a Christian rapper. I had him on. Since I come from Christian rap, like I spent many years ministering and going to churches and recording artists and doing their graphic art and videos, and even locally, like I was the go-to guy with gospel rap. Everybody would come to me to book shows, and we travel and do churches and all that stuff back in the day. So I still have a hand in on that, just because like I believe in some of the stuff that the people are doing, the ones who are doing it right. I'll say that. And I think there's only a couple, there's only a few who are doing it right, especially some of the ones doing it full time and stuff like that. So Illuminate's a really good dude. So I had him on the show. One thing that sticks out to me from that episode is I talked a little bit about my my testimony, and we talked about cults and stuff, and dealing with Satanism and things like that. And I talked about coming from Hosanna Assembly when I came out of witchcraft in Louisiana, and this is the church that essentially the show. What's the name of that show? True Detective with Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey was featured off of this church that I went to that became a satanic cult. Like, it was a regular Christian church, and then all of a sudden they got it. I don't know if it's all of a sudden. I'm sure it's a slow fade. And we talked about like how do you start out from a Christian church and move into sacrificing animals and having sex with each other's children. Like, that's what they got in trouble for, and the pastor is locked up in prison. But I went to that church. When I went there, I didn't see anything like that going on. It was after we left and we would visit, come back in town, that it began to get a little bit weird. So that sticks out to me from that episode with Illuminate. Number 95, and this is an older episode, but it was uploaded. Like, some of these are out of order because when I uploaded them to the server. So number 95, Busy Bone of Bone Thugs and Harmony, Ouija boards, angels, and the occult. I'm still blown away that I got that interview. The stars aligned, and Busy Bone gave me his phone number and said he would do it. He checked out my work, checked out my Instagram, and he liked what I was about, and he came on for a podcast. So we had about a 2-hour discussion. Well, it looks like an hour and 22 minutes to be exact discussion. And so if you're listening to this and haven't heard that interview, most of the questions that I got for that interview came from an interview that I seen from him backstage at a concert or something. They were talking to him about the Illuminati, and I think he was on some kind of drugs, man. He might have been on speed and just really drunk or something, but he was on something for real. So Busy Bone drops a lot of occult knowledge in his music. He just sprinkles it. He doesn't go into detail, kind of like what we do, but he'll sprinkle some little stuff here and there. But in this interview backstage, he was talking about God. He was talking about the angels having the ability to fly around the earth 7 times in 1 second. He talked about them being attracted to metal, with a lightning bolt. He talked about how they communicate telepathically, and he said some weird sayings about they're 300 parasangs tall. His speech was scrambled, but when I seen that interview, I was like, man, he's on something, man. He's talking about something deep, because I'm studying, and I'm a huge Busy Bone fan. My 2 favorite rappers of all time, Busy Bone from Bone Thugs and Crazy Bone, like, those are the people I listened to as a little kid, and I got a chance to interview them, right? So I wrote down a bunch of questions about, like, from that interview, and looked them up myself, and found out he was talking about a lot of stuff out of the Kabbalah. He was talking about these angels, and these angels he was referring to 300 parasangs tall. I'm like, I never even heard that, but I would Google those terms and try to look it up, and found on Wikipedia that he was talking about the angels that are over the firmament. He was talking about the angel Uriel. So I was like, man, I got to get him on. I want to pick his brain, because I've never heard an interview with him going into detail. So I had him on. I asked him these questions, and essentially he played dumb. He act like every question that I had was taken from other interviews of stuff he's mentioned. And then I would ask him the questions, and he would act like he didn't know what I was talking about. Now that comes into another theory of did he really know what I was talking about, or he's done interviews, and there's a lot of blogs and commentary, even from Bone Thugs themselves. They say that, Busy Bone is out there, and they don't know what he's talking about half of the time. People call him crazy, say he's a crazy person. He's a alcoholic, drug addict, whatever, and he's just rambling. So part of me feels like he was trying to clean up his image, like he wanted to do the interview and become poised, because we know how much they talk about the Ouija board and spirits, even in their music. Like, I'm talking about from like at least 93 on, and they've been around way longer than that. So I was even talking to him about the Ouija board, and he was just saying, oh, that's a Parker Brothers game. We just threw that in there for whatever. But they go into some deep knowledge just to be throwing stuff in there. You know what I'm saying? So in that interview, I feel like he was trying to clean up his persona. But then other people have said maybe he don't know this stuff. Maybe that he just gets so intoxicated, or he's on speed or meth or whatever his drug of choice is. We know we're dealing with pharmakia when you get into a lot of that stuff. And what if he's just, the spirits are just speaking through him, and he don't know about the Kabbalah? Like, he's been on stage drunk or messed up out of his mind, and just started like reciting stuff about the tree of life, and talking about the Sephiroth tree, which is mentioned of in the Kabbalah. Like, he throws some deep stuff out there, but when I asked him this stuff, he didn't know what I was talking about. Really weird. listen to the interview clip. Type in Busy Bone Illuminati on YouTube first, and then come back and listen to my interview with him for it to kind of make sense. He did get into some deep stuff though. Like I got him talking. He started talking about the galaxy bump, and he talked about angels a little bit. So he did get into some deep stuff, but it wasn't what I was going for. But it was still a good episode, and I got to speak to one of my favorite rappers ever. You know what I'm saying? A childhood legend. Like I remember being called into the principal's office and going and having to go speak to the counselor in like the third or fourth grade, and they were just talking to me about what goes on in my head, and they were like, so, you know, name me some of your favorite lyrics. Who do you like to listen to? And I lit up. Oh, I like to listen to Bone Thugs. And they're like, okay, what's some of their lyrics? And I remember just lighting up, telling the counselor, I dash, I duck, and I hide behind a tree, making sure the popos don't see me. And I'm just like giving it all and trying to skip the curse words. She's like, oh, okay, really? And it's like I don't know how old I was, 7 years old, 8 years old or whatever, like reciting Bone Thugs and Harmony lyrics and stuff. So, you know, it was cool to finally talk to him. But that's episode 95. 94, Belief in Fatherhood interview. Belief in Fatherhood is a show that me and my daughter started watching. This is a guy named Belief. He was a Christian rapper at one point, which I didn't know that at the time. I know him through his web show that he started. So type that in, Belief in Fatherhood. It's really cute. He basically is doing his own reality show with his family. He's got these little kids and stuff, and they're funny. He films them, and you can hardly understand what they're saying half of the time, and he puts subtitles up, but he goes out with his family and does stuff like that. And so yeah, me and my daughter were watching that show together, so it was really cool to have him on, and she got to come in here and talk to him. So she kind of would look at him and his family like celebrities, whether if it's a television show or a really well-produced internet show that seems like television. So got to have him on. We talked about everything from hip-hop music to God, spirituality, what's wrong with Christian rap, you know, all of this stuff. So really good episode. I enjoyed that one. And that one doesn't have a lot of views on it. He's getting bigger. Like, as when he's like, you guys know I talk about consistency and just showing up, and he's getting bigger. Like when we did that one, he only had a certain amount of subscribers, maybe 20,000 or so, and he's probably tripled or quadrupled that since, you know. So that was uploaded May 30th of last year. So that was a good episode though. I enjoyed that one. That one wasn't just deep occult spirituality. We talked, like I said, about music and about life and stuff too. So, you know, I enjoy having different conversations where everything doesn't have to be about really deep esoteric stuff or anything spiritual. Like, I enjoy just a good conversation, you know, with things that I'm interested in. So that was good. Episode 93. Garrett Russell of Silent Planet. Silent Planet is a really cool Christian metal band that I got into recently. The lead singer, Garrett Russell, he's kind of like poetic. He kind of raps a little bit, but it's like this poetic, aggressive rapping over metal, and some of it's like melodic and beautiful, and he's doing his poetry, and then it gets really heavy and he screams and stuff. So I'm really into old school metal and stuff, so it was really good to find their band, because they're for me they were reminiscent of some older bands and really good bands. Silent Planet, make sure y'all check them out. But it was cool because he's a Christian guy, and he was on the Warped Tour. Like, they've been doing really big shows and stuff, and they've made it essentially. And I got to talk to him about, just in passing, I mentioned psilocybin mushrooms, and thinking he would know about them, not that I was trying to hip him, and I was like, oh yeah, they're really beautiful, and I really didn't want to go down that path with him. I didn't think I would. I just mentioned it, and he's like, well, tell me more, you know. So I was like, okay, if you really want to know, here's the deal. So it's funny talking to Christians about psilocybin mushrooms, and coming from a Christian perspective, and like my beautiful encounter with that was with Christians at a retreat, and like a bunch of Christian dudes listening to worship music in the woods on magic mushrooms. So it's really really cool to talk to him about that for the first time. You know, he seemed interested too, and I was like, well, if you haven't heard about him, you are, especially on the Warped Tour. There's a lot of progressive bands and stuff out there who definitely use psilocybin mushrooms. I think Born of Osiris was one of them, and like Vela Maya they were on tour with too, and those guys talk about that in their music too. So 92, episode 92, XXX Adult Entertainment, Sex Trafficking in Jesus. I talked to Angie Duncan about her testimony. She was a escort, and she was into the porn industry, and came out of that and gave her life to Christ, and now she works to help bring women out of that. And she had a really moving story and testimony. So that was a really cool episode that we did. That gets a lot of traffic on my website and on YouTube, simply because it says XXX in it, and adult and sex. Like, I did it on purpose, like that it would show up in the search engines and stuff. But it gets a lot of traffic, and I think people are looking up porn, like, and they find that video thinking there's going to be something in it. But isn't that cool? Like, a buddy of mine told me like years ago, he had the idea of uploading like porn thumbnails or something, and naming it porn stuff and putting it on YouTube. And but when you click on it, it's somebody preaching about the dangers and the cancer of pornography, right? And the dangers of getting into that. So essentially that's what they get, you know. They're looking at it, but it's not, I mean, it does say that it's her story, it's not tricking them, but it gets a lot of traffic. Biblical number 91, biblical prophecies, Jesus is a worm, a snake, and more. Kendall Shoulders. Okay, so I'll say this, like, this is when I was still doing the Mythicist podcast, and some of these were under the Mythicist. Having him on, he reached out to me because he wrote a book that he wanted to pay me to feature on the episode. I was trying to do commercials and stuff, so if people wanted to advertise on the podcast, you know, I was looking into that, and I just had it open up on my website. So he hit me up, said, hey, I have a book. If you'll mention my book, you know, during your podcast on so many episodes, I'll pay you. And we did that. I checked it out, and I was excited because this was my first advertiser coming to the podcast, and I was excited about it. I told some friends because his book is called Jesus is a Worm, a Snake, and More. So I was kind of thrown off by the name of the book because I didn't want it to say anything crazy about Jesus or, you know, what Jesus was. So I was kind of nervous about it. I did look into it a little bit, but you know what? This dude, he's a paying customer, whatever. We're going to feature the book. Some of my friends were like, dude, I wouldn't do that. You don't know what this guy's going to say about Jesus. You know, you're doing it for the money and you're selling out your belief for the money or whatever. But the thing is, like, I talked about his book, and we did a little commercial, whatever, had that on a couple episodes. And then I actually had him on as well for an interview. And that podcast was really good. The podcast was really good. This dude is like, it wasn't nothing bad. It wasn't nothing crazy about Jesus. It wasn't like way out there new age crazy stuff. Like, it was legit. Like, he talked about how in the Old Testament, it talks about Jesus being a worm. Like, there's it's like a metaphor or an allegory about you know, we hear about the canker worms and things like that. That's talking about Satan or the enemy coming in and eating up all of your goods and stuff. The worms get in and they eat it up. So it's talking about Satan like that. And so we always identify the worm with Satan, but there was another worm that he talked about. I think it's called the Tola worm, and it's mentioned of in the Old Testament as a prophecy about Jesus. And he goes through detail about how this worm's life and how it was mentioned about Jesus in the Old Testament. The worm plays out the life of Jesus, like he sacrificed himself for his children, so the children can eat off of its body, and it's just like, when it dies, it leaves a red blood stain. It's really, really trippy to go into that interview. We hear him talk about that, but it got to be a really good interview, especially at the end. We talked about intimacy with Jesus and going into the wedding chamber, and he was well versed on that, about spending quiet time and quality time in your prayer closet and how it relates to a relationship. So that was a really good episode. So it was really good, like, you know what I'm saying, all the way around. So Kendall Shoulders, number 91, really good episode. Number 90, JC Johnson, Real Monsters, stories in cryptozoology. Rest in peace, JC Johnson, man. He just passed away recently. I really enjoyed talking to him. I first talked to JC Johnson when I was a truck driver. There were nights where, like, and this was this particular night was like I worked like a 20-hour day, man. It wasn't good, but I needed to like be engaged and involved in like listening to podcasts. But I called into a show. I had my headset on, and I got to talk to them. So as I was able to talk and about demons and things like that, I think the show was about. JC Johnson called in to the show as well, so I got to talk about the Book of Enoch and go into a lot of detail from some of the stuff that they had never heard about on the show. And me and JC Johnson went back and forth, and he talked about his faith in Jesus and stuff. So that was the first time I heard his name mentioned. And then we added each other on Facebook, and little did I know that he's a pretty big name. He was on he's been on like the Discovery Channel and all kinds of stuff, sharing about cryptozoology. So I had him on as a guest as well, and we talked about he goes out, he's like an adventurer, you know what I'm saying? He goes out and investigates and of cryptozoology, not just ghosts and stuff, but when something is physically there, where it's like chupacabra or Bigfoot or aliens that, you know, are actually on the ground, he goes to investigate them, and he's got some really cool stories. That interview was special to me as well, because that was I believe the first time that Leo Henry, a good friend of mine, called in, shared his story a little bit. He called in for prayer, so that's a really beautiful episode, and I'm reminded that I shared that with Leo, who's a good friend of mine. Leo did the Mythicist podcast with me for a while, and he's a good friend. So he did comment in the chat section here earlier, so he's here watching. So yep, that's a good episode. Episode 89, Jordan Maxwell, the Zodiac, the Mazzaroth, and astrotheology in the Bible. That's what I named it. That's what I wanted to talk about with Jordan. Jordan is is a weird one. Chris Garner says trolls. Yep. Leo didn't do trolls with us, though. That was Alonzo. We'll get to Alonzo shortly. I did a good episode with Alonzo, too. The trolls thing was fun. I was thinking about that earlier, but it wasn't like what I was supposed to be doing, put it that way. Jordan Maxwell, he's the grandfather of esoterics and of what we know it to be now. A lot to be said for him. A lot of people have different opinions of him. Some people think he's a troll. Some people think he's making it up. Some people, you know, there's all kind of stuff. I respect him. I like what he's doing. He's been used to get me where I am, you know, and I've sampled him early on in some music, like him talking about UFOs and talking about his encounter with angelic beings that came to him to show him his life path and stuff. And so listening to podcasts and interviews, and that was actually on the Project Camelot interview that I heard that, and I sampled it in a song with me and Beast 1333. So if you haven't heard that song, type in TruthSeekah Beast 1333 and listen to a snippet of Jordan Maxwell's story about meeting someone who introduced him to his life's work and took him out in the backyard. A man summoned UFOs, and I was really big into that for a while, of going out and meditating, praying, and fasting, and being able to summon UFOs on command. Like, I really got into that for a long time, and I started doing it. And part of it that piqued my interest was that story Jordan Maxwell told in the interview with Carrie Cassidy on Project Camelot. And I've had Jordan on the show 3 or 4 times now, and I've tried to get him to go into detail, and he won't. You know, Jordan Maxwell is really negative on a lot of stuff. He's kind of given up at this point. He doesn't really have much. Like, he's given his life to this work, and people have stolen from him and talked bad about him and do blogs saying he's a devil worshiper and things like that. So his spirits are really down. But the latest one I did with him, it's kind of a reversal. He was a little bit more positive on the later interview that I did. We'll talk about later, because he just signed with Gaia TV to rehash a lot of his videos and re-record that stuff, and they have a huge following. So hopefully we see some good stuff from Jordan. But this particular interview, Dano co-hosted it with me. He co-hosted a few of these, but we had to. It was so dark that we had to cut Jordan off. Like, he was like literally in the spirit realm. I could feel him sucking all the air out the room, man. It was really intense, you know, just giving up on humanity. We're all doomed. You're all gonna die. And humans are too stupid to succeed, and just crazy stuff. We're like, oh, okay, like we believe in a hope, we believe in Jesus and you know, God who loves us and cares about us, and we are the change that we want to see. We can change it. Don't just give up. So, you know, it's hard talking to him because he takes that stance a lot of times. I don't think he did early on. Early on, some of his stuff was different. So anyway, that's the first Jordan Maxwell interview. Next, we go to number 88, episode 88, Santos Bonacci, The Zodiac Within, As Above, So Below. This was the first time that I talked to Santos. It was a really good interview. Some of these people I was kind of starstruck to talk to. Jordan Maxwell, Michael Heiser, Santos Bonacci, James Gilliland, and it was when I first started podcasting. So my speech was all over the place. I'm still learning how to have dialogue and how to answer questions and set questions up. And I'm still learning now, but it was very bad then. There was a lot more stuttering, a lot more and you knows, those things that I had to go back and edit to bring now. So I think I was under the name The Awakening Podcast at the time. So the name of my podcast has changed over the years of trying to find something that sticks, and finally TruthSeekah Podcast is me. This is what I do. So that was a good episode, Santos Bonacci. I got him to endorse my work. He did me a promo video at the end telling people to check out my work and my album, talking about the power of music. Also, too, I wanted to note the episode before that, Jordan Maxwell. I had Jordan Maxwell endorse my work, too. He did a whole video talking about the power of music and awakening the fire and awakening the fire within you. So to have Jordan Maxwell co-sign my music was big at the time. This was back in 2012. Jordan Maxwell co-signed on my music and used it in a lot of his promo videos. He did like a GoFundMe campaign, and they were giving away my album, and been able to work with him, man, it was a huge honor and blessing. So that was really cool. 87, Dr. Michael Heiser, The Divine Council of the Elohim and the Gods of the Bible. That was a real good one. Dr. Michael Heiser is a very deep individual. I don't take all of anybody's work for what it and run with it. So like people say I interview like Jordan Maxwell, and I know Kerry Cassidy was like, well, if you interview Jordan Maxwell and you look up to him, he believes this and that. Well, that doesn't mean I believe it about those titles or subjects. Like, you know, he has his truth on these topics, and let's feature that. Let's talk about that. Let's go into detail. But when it comes to some of the other topics, some of these guys are off on. But there is a connection there for me for Michael Heiser and Jordan Maxwell talking about the divine council of the Elohim, talking about who are the gods of the Bible. Both of those guys bring a piece of that to the table, and then when you take both stories and mesh them together, you find out that there is some coherency there, that they're kind of talking about the same thing. Their terminology is different, their terminology is off, which most of these people are. Most churches, their terminology is different than the next one, and religions and all of that stuff. So you have to be able to look past that stuff. So talking about the divine council of the Elohim, the gods who created mankind, and the gods that were over different regions and the principalities and stuff like that. So we went into some detail with that with Michael Heiser, and Jordan Maxwell goes into that as well. So that was a really good interview. So episode 86, James Gilliland, Contact Has Begun. James Gilliland, man, when we was talking about summoning UFOs and really getting into UFO contact and aliens and things like that, like I was drawn to his work. And they go to his ranch in Trout Lake, Washington, and he has a ranch right at the bottom of Mount Adams, and there's like crazy UFO activity, like insane. They go out there and they have like a spiritual retreat set up. They stargaze, they do Kundalini yoga, chi energy, they do qigong practices and spirituality related. And there's a good documentary that we mentioned in there. So James Gilliland was interviewed on the BBC by I can't think of the guy's name right off, but it's a really big like television host over in the UK. And the guy went to a bunch of different places where people claim to have contact with aliens. They claim to have contact with UFOs, and they can summon them. So this guy went, and his name was Danny something, but he went to all these places all over the world of people claiming to have contact, and it was all he never seen any evidence. He wanted to believe, and he's open about it. So he said, "Look, I want to believe, but they didn't give me no evidence. These people believe in their mind, they're convinced, but we never saw anything." The very end of the documentary, he goes to James Gilliland's ranch, Eastwood Ranch, and they go out stargazing, and they see UFOs. But more than that, he gets into the spiritual side of it, and he's doing the breath work and doing the energy work with James Gilliland and some of the teachers there. And dude has a conscious awakening there. And he said, "Look, it's more." He's like, "I thought it was going to be just about trying to see a UFO, but now it's about spirituality and spiritual awakening." And he had just like come to Jesus moment, if you will, there. Someone in the chat says his name is Danny Dyer. That's it, Danny Dyer. Make sure you guys looked it up. It's really good. But at the very end, he goes to James Gilliland's ranch. He sees multiple UFOs and has spiritual encounters, and his life was changed. So it was a really beautiful documentary that was done. Number 85. This is one of the best and worst interviews that I've done. Eric Dollard, The Supernatural Power of Music, Entities, Pythagoras, and Spirituality. One of the best and worst. One of the best because the information that came through from Eric Dollard, who's like, I don't know if you want to call him a physicist, but when it comes to understanding music and the ancient practice of music and to like Bach and Beethoven and symphony music and how it was created to enhance spiritual contact. He's talking about the early churches were built in such a way that the sound in the cathedrals, the sound would resonate throughout the building, and the music itself would cause you to have a spiritual encounter with God. And he has a lot of info on that. He talked a lot about sound vibrations creating spirits and creating little entities. And I got to tie all of this stuff back to the Bible, and he had no idea. Like, I guess he wasn't versed with the scriptures, but it's so weird. Like, a lot of people will be talking about stuff, and my mind goes straight back to the scriptures about what they're talking about. So he's talking about these entities that are over certain regions, and you can see them through certain microscopic lenses and stuff. If you like this weird, I don't even know the name of it, but if you step back, you can see like shapes and stuff of these entities from the music and then over regions and stuff. And so I got to go into detail about the principalities and powers that are over regions mentioned of in the Bible. And then it talks about in the book of Daniel, the prince of Persia was this entity that was over Persia that resisted the archangel Michael, I believe it was, traveling back and forth, bringing heavens and bringing messages from heaven to earth, and this entity, this principality, withstood him. It talks about that in Daniel. And so all the ancient gods we're talking about Baal and all of the ones that are mentioned of in the Old Testament, which goes into detail in the Michael Heiser interview. See, I guess all this stuff fits together. It talks about it in that interview. These are the gods, and they were over regions, right? When they were physically here and can travel back and forth. And it's in the Bible, man. There's some really deep stuff in there. So we got into that. I say it's one of the best interviews because just some of that information that came through was just so beautiful. But one of the worst because my audio wasn't the greatest because I was recording on a different platform. And then his audio was so bad, man. Like, it sounded like like the most of it is just like buzzing almost. But if you can be patient enough and get through that and listen, man, that's one of the best interviews I've done. And there's so much beautiful wisdom came through there. Also, like I talked about the power of music on there too. I did catch some backlash too, because obviously, I mean, if people are like, he's got a huge following, huge fan base. People would listen to it and they're like, why does this guy keep talking about the Bible? Why does this dude keep, pointing everything back to the Bible and stuff? That's just what I do. It makes sense to me. That's how my mind works. So, there was several comments like that on his videos and stuff. But yeah, episode 85, Eric Dollard was a good one. Episode 84, should Christians use magic mushrooms? Chris Rushing interview. Chris Rushing was a cool interview. I seen him from some news articles that came out. He's from Warrior, Alabama. He has a church which is called the Oculava Church of Inner Light. It's a shamanic Native American Christian church. So really cool because it's a Christian church that uses some of the natural sacraments that are put here, some of the medicines that are here, which is really cool. And so we had him on, and we talked about some of my experiences. Dano called in. That was a defining show, I think, for Dano, because he wanted to talk to him. He had seen this guy's research and wanted to talk to the guy. Then he sees I was interviewing him. He wanted to come on and be a guest as a call-in, but I said, look, you can't be, if you're going to do this, bro, like, you can't be scared to share it on your page. And I gave him the ultimatum. I was like, if you're going to co-host this with me or call in during the second hour or whatever, you have to get to a point where you're not afraid to share this out with your Christian following. Because he would, me and Dano would do a lot of shows together, and he wouldn't share them. He wouldn't share them with his fan base because he had supporters who were conservative and things like that. And there's wisdom in there, obviously, but it comes to a point where you just got to be authentic. Like, if you're into it, don't lie. If you know what I'm saying, if you do mushrooms, and Dano does mushrooms or did mushrooms, whatever, he's just like me, just, he's like all of us, kind of, learning and exploring and searching, especially coming from a Christian background. There's a similar battle that we have to face with, like, should I be the person that God is calling me to be, the things that I'm into, or do I have to pretend like I don't like these things? Should I have to pretend like I don't like mushrooms or drink a beer here and there, or whatever the case is? This is like a similar battle that most of us go through, especially coming from a Christian perspective. So that's a good interview. Chris Russell is awesome. 83, ASAP Preach interview. ASAP Preach is another Christian rapper. It was a fun episode. We got to talk about his music and Christian rap and just the state of it. One thing that sticks out to me is, like, I thought excuse me. I thought this guy was a spitting image of DJ Paul from 3 6 Mafia, like a white version of DJ Paul. So I did like a side-by-side image comparison on the screen because he looked just like him. So that's one thing that stands out to me about that interview. He's not bad either. He's covered from head to toe in tattoos and got them all over his face and stuff. He's a videographer too, so he's got some pretty cool work. So that's what stands out to me from that interview. A couple of these interviews, Hunter Hughes would call into, so he definitely was a fan of a lot of these Christian rappers, so he called into that one. Hunter Hughes became a regular guest on the show for a while. Number 82, Koi, the Third Eye Opener, Our Connection to God Through Plant Medicine. That was a good show. That was the first one I did with Koi, was really good. He was a fan of my music, and he talks about how, like, one of my songs, Fearless, set him on this this journey of spirituality and pursuing the life that he felt he should pursue, of quitting his job, leaving a abusive relationship with a girl who was cheating on him and stuff, and he said it was my song that did that. So that was really cool. We started the interview off that way, and we talked a lot about, like, dealing with like notoriety in public and stuff, and for me, I related it to when I was in high school, into Marilyn Manson and stuff. People would know me, and my reputation preceded me even in high school. Random people would come up to me and want to fight me. So it kind of messed with me, like rednecks, and like I would look at people and they would come up to me and want to fight, and they knew who I was. It was really weird in high school because I was gothic and into Manson and wore makeup and shaved my eyebrows and just crazy. And I would do stuff too. Yeah, I would do crazy stuff to get them mad at little small country schools or whatever. So we talked about people coming up to you who know you in public, and it's been happening a little bit more recently as the show grows too. I've been stopped in public here recently, and from a couple different people, and they know who I am, and they want to get a picture or give me a hug or whatever the case is. That's really cool. I don't mind that, but I talked about it coming from a bad perspective from high school. And he talked about it because he has a huge Instagram following, and he would get recognized in public. So that was a good show, though. We talked about plant medicine. We talked about, it's funny, we talked about rape, which is shamanic snuff, because he was doing that before the interview. And I was asking him about it because I didn't know much about it. And then by the time the second interview rolled around with him, I interviewed him again. And I had some rape and ordered some as well. So we did it together on the show. It didn't really make for good audio because there's a lot of silence at the part of us doing it. But it was beautiful, man. Rape is a really cool shamanic snuff that helps you feel more grounded. So that was cool. Corey brought that to the table for me. So I have some shamanic snuff as well. 81, Greg Prescott of N5D. Vibrational dimensions and the beings that live on them. I'll give 2 maybe inside jokes and stuff that stands out to me from that interview. Leo did that interview with me in the second hour. He came in and because back then when I was doing some of these on the Mythicist, it was the second hour was only for patrons and stuff. So we do the first hour, then we go into the second hour, take phone calls, and it was a subscription based thing. I since combined the hours and made a show like that, but didn't do that. I don't do that anymore. But the jokes that stand out because we were talking about the levels of these different levels and dimensions and planes of existence, and there's a term we talk about in the spirit. We talk about walking in the spirit, and it's something that you walk in, and it's a part of your life. And that's a term, walk in it, walking in the spirit, and that's a biblical term for real. But he's talking about these different levels of like density and these different dimensions, and the 6th dimension and the 5th dimension, and these are where miracles happen, and these are where you can just speak out words and it create things through your speech, and these are different vibrational dimensions. And I asked him, can you walk in? Is this something you could walk in? And he had no idea how to interpret that. I guess he thought I was actually talking about going to another dimension and walking around in it. So it was funny that he was like, I guess I've never really, it's just so it was a really funny inside joke. Me and Leo, we message each other every now and then talking about, can you walk in it? Can you walk? And also too, something else that stood out to me there was we mentioned about Jesus and stuff, and I meant because he was talking about Buddha and talking about these teachers and stuff. But when I mentioned Jesus, I was like, yeah, Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, blah 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 blah, and I kind of threw him in there with him, and he's like caught me. Instead of just continuing with his point, he wanted to make it known that he didn't believe Jesus existed and Jesus was a real person. And me and Leo have since that interview, we kind of went back and forth of just kind of wondering, like, what do we let slide and what do we correct? And maybe I can correct some of this stuff at the end and stuff and not check him on, because I don't do this show to debate people. You know what I'm saying? I have my beliefs and stuff, and I make sure that's known. And even as to be more recently, I have started kind of checking people, or they'd say, oh, I think Jesus is an expression of your imagination. I was like, nah, he's a little bit more than that, bro. And I check them and do it. So I have been kind of doing that, consciously thinking about this episode in my conversation with Leo about this. So yeah, we got into some debate about that. And, I'm really weird about having the Christian people come on and just keeping it, because I've debated with Christians over the years coming from Christianity, like in Christianity, without having to do anything with spirituality or New Age and stuff. There's a lot of debate there, and I don't want to do that. That's one reason I stay away from it. So I don't have a lot of Christians on, because if they just look at my backdrop, you know what I'm saying? If all you guys who are watching on camera, if you listen on audio, there's like some sacred geometry and like Pokemon and stuff like that behind me. I got some wine bottles and stuff. I got those watching this. That wine bottle there is a gift my wife got me. That's the Mansinth bottle, the Mansinth absinthe. Marilyn Manson has his own form of absinthe. She got me that for Christmas 2 years ago. And then the bottle next to it is the Caduceus wine, which is James Maynard Keenan's wine from the band Tool or Pussifer or Perfect Circle. So that's kind of like collector's things. So they would see things behind me and they don't like it. Or they see my hat. You got an eyeball on your hat. So they want to find contention with everything. So the conversation, all that to be said, that the conversation went from, okay, you won't have Leo check me and say, okay, you won't have Christians on to debate you, and you don't want to let them spew their religious rhetoric, but you're letting New Agers come on here and spill their religious rhetoric. And he kind of had a point, so but I don't, this isn't a debate show. I like to hear your story, where you're coming from, why you believe what you believe, And at the end of the day, I believe everybody should be able to make up their own decision, whether you listen to what I have to say or you side with the guest. There's people who do that. Like, I use this show. I mean, I tap into people's fan base, right? I mean, I've been networking. This show was built off of networking. My podcast and the music as well was built off of networking with people. I do a feature, and early on I paid for features for LCOB, these guys who have a huge following, and nobody knows who I am. I pay them for a feature. Their fan base listens to it because they're itching for new music. And now guess what? If I outdo their favorite rapper, now I'm one of their favorite rappers. And it worked. It worked. Most of you guys listening to me today have found me through the Lost Children of Babylon, have found me because of features with your favorite rappers. And, I have a huge following because of that. And a lot of messages who say, look, you killed them. Like I'm a fan of your stuff. So that was it. So with the music and with the podcast, I'll have Jordan Maxwell on here, and those Jordan Maxwell interviews get, on YouTube, they get like 50-60,000 views, right? So therefore that's probably a lot more people who have no idea who I am. And then I have the ability to win you over to my work, to what I'm bringing to the table. So it's done articulately, like meticulously, like I plan for that stuff. There was a message that I got recently. Somebody's watching a Jordan Maxwell interview with this young wannabe thug or whatever that people call me on online. It's so funny. But he's just watching this random interview with Jordan Maxwell because he loves Jordan Maxwell. And at the end of the interview, we prayed for Jordan Maxwell and prayed for the people watching. This guy, God touched him. He had no idea who I am. He doesn't, I don't know if he's running from God or what was going on in his heart. But as we prayed, that's caught off guard. And you're listening to a show about esoterics and metaphysics and aliens, and then TruthSeekah prays at the end. The presence of God touches you and changes your life. That's why I do what I do. Now, I have to put up with so much flack from the Christian community. You had Jordan Maxwell on. Oh, you're talking about aliens, bro. Bro, why you talking about aliens, bro? They're demons, bro. And I get so much hate mail and flack from people. But I like you guys who get it. And there's a lot of you guys who get it, and you see through it. You guys are on board. So I'll be open with it. Like, I'm open with if you're listening and you resonate, you're here for a reason. The people who get it, man, that's what it's about. And it's working. It is definitely working on many fronts. It's working on the promotion front of advertising, because they want to charge you money to advertise and things. Like, if you start something, you got to promote it. Like, you have to network and all of this stuff. You can have the best show, the best music, the best whatever, and if you don't promote it, you don't spend money behind it and stuff, nobody will ever hear it. You have the best song ever, the best album ever, and nobody will hear it because you didn't promote it and you didn't know how. And so yeah, it's been awesome. Chris Garner says, don't be concerned with the opinions of the sheep. No doubt. Well, and that's been a big thing of like learning of who I am and what my goal and my vision is, and to stick with that, regardless of the opinions of others. I wouldn't be doing this if it was left up to others. My friends, we talk about this all the time. It's like my friends were telling me, dude, don't talk about psilocybin on the show, brother. Don't talk about aliens, brother. All this stuff. Your job's gonna find out. My pastor's gonna find out, and I have to be real with these people. And I said, look, I have to talk about it because y'all won't. I have to talk about it because y'all won't. And whatever success has come from this platform, I think has been because of that. Because I haven't been afraid to talk about it. And people, from a Christian perspective, like, I'm still a believer. I believe in Christ. Like, I give my life to follow him because he gave his life for me. So coming from a Christian perspective, and we're talking about mushrooms, and not in a condescending way, not in a demonization way. We're talking about aliens. We're talking about other religions, you know what I'm saying? And not from a demonizing way. It's catching on. People have questions, man. It's been really it's been really good, man. Somebody says Nathan says Christians should read the Urantia book. I've read some of it, definitely. So yeah, that's the goal, man. I'll let you guys know what I'm doing. I hide nothing. I'm open. This is what it is. There's nothing secretive going on, and that's where the power is, man. Of just being who God created you to be, and be confident with that. Yeah, I mess up. Yeah, I may say this and do that at times, but I'm open with it. I'm a man. I'm learning. I have not come to I'm still learning, man. This is still a journey. I'm still learning ways and etiquette and all kinds of stuff, and people respect that because I'm being open with it and I'm not hiding anything. You know why they respect it? Because I respect it when other people do that. Like when I listen to people be themselves and they don't have to perform and they don't have to act a certain type of way. They just, what you see is what you get. And trust me, anybody, I say Christians, but anybody in religion, I mean, when you have to wear a mask to be accepted. And that conversation bled over into, I'll be honest, Watchman was who's a good friend of mine. I put out his music and help him and stuff. And he was one of the ones telling me not to talk about the mushrooms or the aliens or whatever. Don't do it, bro. And trust me, look, it's working. Like I'm doing this full time, doing what I love to do because I've been open about my experiences. And you can too. It ain't just me. I'm saying this to encourage you to be the person that God created you to be and not be afraid of the opinions of men or the acceptance of men. Trust me, be true to yourself, man. Know thyself. So this conversation with Watchmen, and The Voice too, everybody, man, they were saying, look, don't do it, bro. Don't talk about this stuff. But I feel like I'd be lying to you. I feel like I'd be selling you short. When I got born again and had a life-changing encounter with Jesus that changed my life, I told everybody. I went, like, I was kind of young and dumb about it, but I remember going to Walmart and picking up the phone on Walmart and putting in the number to talk, getting on the intercom and preaching. Jesus is so beautiful. He loves you. If you come to him, he'll accept you. Like going over the Walmart speaker. Like that's how, like, we would do foolish things, right? But that's how much I believed in that you couldn't tell me not to speak about it. And the same type of experience from psilocybin mushrooms is a life-changing experience for the better. And you're telling me not to talk about it? No, I'm going to use the same zeal, the same fervor to talk about these beautiful things that society doesn't want you to know about, that people don't want you to know about, that religion doesn't want you to know about, right? So it's paid off for me in the end. And then I told Watchman, he started going to a church, and then they were like, TruthSeekah, you need to come to church, bro. I think the devil got you not wanting to go to church and stuff. And I just had to I didn't go off on it, but I told him straight up, I said, look, these people find out you going to this church, this little backwoods church, and these people find out that you're working on an album right now talking about psilocybin, talking about aliens, spirituality, yoga, breath work. I said, they gonna cut your head off. You have to go there and act like you're not who you are. If these people find out that you're working on this album, you're done. And that goes for all of you guys. You go to church, they find out you're doing yoga. Some churches are like getting into that stuff, but some of the, you know what I'm saying? You can't be yourself. That's demonic. You can't be yourself. Well, brother, you shouldn't promote that stuff. No. This is the person God's called me to be. I tried to run from this calling. I tried to act like, look, I don't believe in that stuff no more, guys. I tried to run back to the church to get them to accept me again. And it was all hell, man. Like I felt like I was selling myself short, and the things that God has drawn me to for a reason, I was trying to act like he didn't. And God had this particular path for me, just like he has for you, man. And it's worth whatever it costs, man, to lay it down, to follow that path, man, because your wildest dreams will come true. Mind has not seen and ear has not heard the things that God has in store for those who love him. Like he'll take you further than you could ever imagine. And this is just the beginning, guys. This podcast, the music, we're just getting started. We're just getting started, man. I have so much vision, and it's growing. It's expanding. The Thursday night things that we're doing. It's been so phenomenal. I see visions of us doing this live and traveling, doing this when coming to see you guys, like all of this stuff, man. So we're just getting started. Joshua Fluman says, you'll destroy yourself from the inside if you deny what you were made for. Yeah, man. Yep. That's a great divide, though, and sometimes it takes years, man, and it's this inward sanctification process till you're ready to walk it out. And some of us, like, we can't be given this platform. If you would have gave me this platform like this some years ago, I would have messed it up. I would have had contentions with people and called them out and belittled them to like to get you to follow me, you know, all kinds of stuff, that the person that I used to be years ago. But you have to go through lessons and seasons and things like that to work out, to purge out all the bad stuff, you know what I'm saying? And then he'll refine it and give it back to you where you're supposed to be. That was Greg Prescott, N5D, number 81. We're going to keep going. Big Boy says, you're a blessing in my life, brother. Man, love your support, insight, and all your music. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I bless you. Number 80, Kalki, spirituality, comparative theology, and beef in spiritual hip hop. Yes, beef and spiritual hip hop. Kalki's a really good dude, man. Kalki's different, man. He's out there. I'll tell you that. I don't know too many people who aren't out there, though. Whether you're in spirituality or you're in Christianity, there's a lot of weird people, a lot of weird theologies. Kalki's out there, man, but I love that dude. He's real. We had this was a second interview with him. I lost the first one that we did. Well, my channel got shut down, but this is the second one that we did. And we went in because we both were having problems with another dude who was a big name in the spiritual hip hop community. It's a dude named Atma. Now, Kalki said he was in like some complicated relationship. Like because Kalki talked about it, so I'll talk about it. Kalki was in a relationship with so he's a guy who was in love with a girl who was his life partner, his soulmate, but she was a lesbian. So there's a three-way ring there. They tried to be intimate sexually. She didn't like it. He didn't like it. I don't know. They tried it. So that's his twin flame, but she's a lesbian. So it was a three-way relationship. And so he talked about that a little bit I thought that was weird. You know what I'm saying? I got to call it. Yeah, it is what it is. He talked about it, you know, and that was his life. And hey, it's 2018, right? But we talked about Atma because Atma was going in on gay people. Like Atma was bashing people, calling them fags and faggots and using it as a derogatory term on his Facebook. And Kalki took issue with that and said, hey, bro, you're like supposed to be in a spiritual movement and you're sitting here bashing all these gay people and stuff and calling them names or talking about he'll kill them and all kind of weird stuff. And Atma has a huge following, so they kind of got into a little bit of beef with it. I got into beef with Atma too because the fool stole money from me. Like I said, we used to pay for features. I paid Atma for a feature early on. He's on my first album that's into the esoteric stuff, which is Awaken the Fire. I paid him for a feature and Rasul, so we had a beautiful song came out of it. Tried to get him on my next album, Spiritual Alchemy. Paid him for a feature. He never sent me the verse. Had to do like a refund thing through PayPal. Got my money back. And then I tried to do it again for the next album, 333. Atma was supposed to be on the song The Imaginatrix, which was me, Watchman, and John Illuminati Congo. I think he would have took Watchman's place, maybe. I can't remember, but it was gonna be a good song. I was gonna watch Atma on there, and Atma didn't like that beat. The beat is dope. I really love that beat, and but it was a fast beat. We're chopping on there. Like that's like the flow was consistent, and you had to come fast. And I think like a lot of people, you'll find out even when I mention Pyrex when it comes to this hip hop thing, Pyrex is a chopper. He can go fast. I love it. We all love it, right? But he on his collabs, if you pay Pyrex for a feature, we've paid Pyrex for a feature, or you know what I'm saying? On their collabs, they rap slow. If somebody who chops really fast, it takes a lot of work, a lot of effort to write all those syllables, to do the work and try to find other words. But you can write a slow rap a lot faster. So on their collabs, they'll rap slow. Even the choppers like Pyrex, you're like, hey, this don't even sound like Pyrex. Like, what the crap, you know? So, you know, if you have a bunch of features, you're just knocking them out, collecting your money, rapping fast, knocking these features out. And Pyrex was making money doing that. And so Atma, kind of same thing. There was a beat where you had to rap fast because of the tempo, and we came fast on it. He's like, oh, send me another beat. And I was like, I'll send you another one. Send him a couple more. And it was the same thing because I like to chop on my stuff. Not the whole time, but there's, you know, syllables I like to chop and combine. And, so he never did do it, and I think it's really because that. But so he got me for the money, and it was like too long. I think I sent the money Western Union. He asked me to send it Western Union. And when you do Western Union, you can't contest it and get your money back. So I lost the money and he never did pay me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be vocal about it. So on this podcast with Kalki, we both talked about our contention with Atma. And because I talked about it because there's other people who are fans of Atma, other young people like young TruthSeekah, who may send this guy some money to get their favorite rapper on a song with them, and they take your money and they don't send you the verse. It's happened. You guys don't know. I've had this happen to me so many times. It's insane. We kind of got to a place where we're like, look, we're past paying for features, man. Like, we're not doing it no more. Because now we've established something where we really don't have to pay for features, you know? So, but there was another guy named Low Key who did that to me and did that to my buddy Watchman, you know what I'm saying? And did it to Hunter Hughes. And I've been open. I've said these names. Hey, watch out for these guys, man. They're doing this to people. Hunter Hughes got a collab with Low Key just recently. Like the other day, I seen that Hunter was promoting a picture of Low Key and said, hey, feature coming soon. And he's promoting it. I'm like, bro, you shouldn't promote that until you get your verse back, man. Just letting you know. Don't promote it. Don't spend money. He's like, why? I was like, bro, we told y'all to watch out for these guys. And sure enough, he never sent them a verse. You know, never sent them a verse. Yeah, Adam, you got to watch later. Adam just joined the chat. He said we'll have to watch later. You will have to watch it because I'm going through each episode and I'm going to get to your episode. It's cool, too, because a lot of my Patron family here, a lot of people who are joining us in the chat, like I've had these guys on my show. Danny, I need to get you on my show, bro. You're a good dude, man. And so we've heard their stories, man. These people are joined in for a reason, man. So we've had them on. Adam's been on here, Joshua Fluman. We're going to get to their shows here shortly. I say shortly. We're just trying to knock it out and see how far we're going. We're going to be on episode 79, working down from 100. I don't know if I should do this in one episode, maybe a 4-hour episode or what, but I guess I probably should just keep going, right? All right, 79. Ed Grimsley, Star Wars, UFOs battling in our night skies. Rest in peace, Ed Grimsley. Ed Grimsley was a guy who he was like one of the first ones to really get out there and market watching UFOs with night vision goggles. There's this military grade. I wish I had a pair. We should do like a fund me thing, cause like to get a pair, because I mentioned it in this episode, and Ed Grimsley had a guy. Man, I should go. And I don't forgot this guy's name, man. Years have passed since this episode's aired. But Ed Grimsley would go out and he would put a camera in the night vision goggles, military grade, Generation 3, I believe it is, night vision goggles, and you can see outside of the atmosphere in this night vision, and they would record like these UFO fleets flying around, and you could see them like outside of the atmosphere, flying in like jet formations and doing all kind of weird aerial maneuvers and stuff. You can see a lot of it with the naked eye, but with these goggles, man, you can see so much more. So that's a big thing in like ufology of seeing them. And Ed Grimsley was one who he would take people out and he'd do interviews and stuff. And Ed Grimsley was big because he went to a conference with George Norrie from Coast to Coast AM, and he walks up to George Norrie and says, hey, you want to see a UFO? And George Norrie's kind of weirded out because this guy's standing in the corner. He's kind of a creepy looking guy, I'll say that. He's standing in the corner watching George Norrie the entire time. And then he walks up to him and says, hey, you want to see UFOs? I can make it happen. He's like, sure. You know, if you can make it happen, definitely. So they go on the roof of the building where he was speaking, and he shows him the night vision goggles. And sure enough, George Norrie attests that he's seen some things that he couldn't explain what it was outside the Earth's atmosphere, flying around and doing weird aerial maneuvers and things. So, but the guy, his name is slipping my mind right now. But we had a mutual friend, and I think it was from an Ed Grimsley interview, or he posted something on on Facebook, and I added this guy early on. And remember, I talk about like early on needing to talk to people. When I started seeing UFOs and stuff, as a Christian, I couldn't really go to the church. They're gonna say it's demons, be careful, stay away. Like, so I was calling into podcasts. I was looking for people to talk to, and I found this guy. And I hate that I can't think of his name right off. But I called him. I ended up talking to this guy. He had his own set of night vision goggles, and he was really big into the work that Ed Grimsley was doing. And I talked to him, like, hey man, what is it? What are we looking at? How do you see it? Like, can you summon them? And just asking questions, man. And the guy spent time with me, and he called into this interview too, and spent a lot of time talking to Ed Grimsley on the interview. But I asked him I just asked, hey bro, is there any way like we can meet up and I can use your goggles? But he's from somewhere like way far away. I said, I'd love to use them. He's like, won't you just buy your own? Won't you just do a GoFundMe on your show and get people to donate towards it, But they're like, I didn't want to do that because it costs so much money. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I think like $3,000 or something for that. But it was a good show, man. Ed Grimsley, like I said, rest in peace, man. So good show. Number 78, Trisha McCannon, Jesus and the Mystery Schools, Angels and How to See Them. Trisha McCannon was one that I heard on Coast to Coast. And her stories of dealing with the brotherhood of the white light and talking about Jesus and Maitreya and having these encounters with Jesus and with fairies and stuff like that. Those stories, man, they would, they would blow my mind. So that's why I like to have people on this show to share their stories, because I remember listening to Coast, and the stories is what got me. People sharing these stories, man. And I loved it. So listen, and I would listen to a lot more of her work because of that, because of her sharing about her experiences with Jesus and these beings appearing to her and stuff. And I wanted to know more. Like, I've had that happen to me. Like, you want to talk to somebody, and I had her on to kind of talk about those experiences too. Trisha McCannon. She actually has a mystery school in Atlanta, Georgia, called I think it's called the Phoenix Mystery School. A really cool lady. I like her. Number 77. Making Esoteric Knowledge Tangible. Chris Harmon of Esoteric Empire. Chris Harmon founded Esoteric Empire. I had he was cool. We started building early on. Esoteric Empire is a huge Facebook page. I think right now it has like 400,000 followers, and he spent a lot of money promoting it. You can do the Facebook ads, and he spent like thousands of dollars promoting it up to so it's like, I guess, an investment or whatever for your Facebook page. But at the time, he had right under 100, and he loved my music. He would share my work and all that good stuff, and I don't know, I think he had 100, right under 100,000. He would share my videos. Okay, and this was the contention. I'll talk about it. I had a video of us baptizing somebody. He let me be able to post videos on the page, and he let me share my videos and upload my videos. And we had a video of us baptizing somebody, and I shared it on the Esoteric Empire page. It pissed him off. He messaged me and was like, going in on me, hey, we can't believe you guys would post that, and that's blah 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 blah, that's ritualistic and religious, and why would you post that on my page? And it's like, bro, it was a powerful video. Like, this dude was on drugs, this dude, what I'm saying, he got his life renewed. That's powerful. That's a miracle, man. And like, there's power in ritual. Yeah, it was a baptism ritual, and he was like, I don't believe in the baptism thing. Say, look, rituals are powerful, man. Like, even if it is just symbolic, like, it was very powerful. So anyway, we went back and forth, and it drew contention there with that I shared that with my face or whatever on his page. And then some stuff happened with, like, I was supposed to build a website for him, and then for really cheap too. So I started working on the website, and then it wasn't done when he wanted it done because he didn't give me the rest of the info for it. And then he just blew up. It was like, give me my money back, bro. So I sent him, I said, I'll give you half because I done did so much work on this. It was him and another guy who paid me. And I sent him the money hoping that he would give the other guy, he would split it with the other guy. You know what I'm saying? And he didn't. And he didn't send them. He just kept the money and didn't tell the other dude that I paid him or whatever. So anyway, this guy, like, people get real possessive over platforms, man. People get real possessive over their platforms. I've noticed that. I've had problems with that. I've had problems like in Facebook groups. Like if I go to a Facebook group and share my podcast, an episode, if I go on there and I share the podcast, and they know that I'm the host, they'll delete it, they'll call it spam or whatever, and they don't like it. But if you guys go out there and you share your favorite episode, that's cool. It's just artistic expression. But if you market your own stuff on these groups, they get mad. And so I've been kicked out of a number of groups and stuff for just sharing some stuff. And even on, like, I was a part of, I talked about this with All It Is a little bit on the show we did together, but I was in the Project Avalon, which is an offshoot of Project Camelot. Project Avalon's forum, and they have a huge spiritual forum that talk about all of this stuff from Project Camelot. I think he took most of the community with him. That's the actual community there. So his forums are kicking. So if you're looking for community, that's a really cool place. So I would post my interviews over there. All It Is, what up, boy? I'd post my interviews over there in Project Camelot, Project Avalon's forum, but I would also try to engage with people too. I would comment on other people's stuff, and I would, I would do other posts that were posts that weren't about my podcast, just so it didn't feel like spam. Or I was just trying to do that. All it is he's mentioning now, Patrick. He says I tried to get you back on Avalon. No. He's a deceiver. Stay away from him. But no, they I guess it was the dude, the founder. I don't know who it was. Could have been an admin, but they emailed me when my wife tried to sign up and said that we were marketing, and they called us. They said, "You've been marketing on here for years." It's like, sharing my work, bro. If somebody else shared my work, it's okay, but I can't come on there and share my work. That's the weird thing with these admins and stuff, man. In these groups, they get so possessive of what's coming through there, and it's stuff that, like, it was an awesome community, man. Everybody was engaging with my stuff over there. Like, where else am I going to post it? Like, where else am I going to go? Like, it was a perfect community. So anyway, that was a weird contention with Project Avalon and Bill Ryan. I guess it was Bill Ryan, but they emailed me and my wife and deleted our accounts and stuff. And anyway, that was episode number 77. So with that being said, me and Bill Ryan, that's my only relationship with him. I haven't never talked to him, but he was with Carrie Cassidy in Project Camelot. So, and then Chris Harmon from Esoteric Empire, like, that's not really a good relationship because of that, 76 Conspiracy Talk, Freeman Fly Hangout Conversation. Okay, this is when we were doing the Mythicist. It was me, Leo, and Alonzo, and I brought those guys on, and we had some shows. It didn't last long like that. I couldn't do it with multiple people like that. I've been able to do one co-host usually, and it's been okay, but it was like a round table thing with us three. Then we would try to have guests on too. It was fun. It's like, because you have other people to roll ideas off of and laugh, and it was a lot more fun. But Alonzo built Freeman Fly's website, so he had like a good relationship with him to get him on my show. So he got him on, and he wanted to do a show where it wasn't about esoterics and about spirituality and stuff. He wanted to just hang out and talk about music, because Freeman Fly plays in bands and he loves music. So I was like, yeah, let's do something different. Let's just get Freeman on here. Freeman's a legend in the esoteric occult stuff and research and stuff. He's come out with a lot of theories that went mainstream and other people have covered, and Freeman doesn't get the credit for. So we had him on, and we were talking about music and stuff. But Alonzo and Leo kind of had it out, because Leo talked most of the time with him, and kept it about spirituality and the occult and stuff like that, because he was talking to somebody he looks up to. I guess, like, the way Leo was kind of hosting the show with me was like how I felt having Jordan Maxwell on for the first time. Like, I wanted to talk to him. I really wanted to pick his brain. So he came on there, and he talked most of the time, and it was just it was a little weird or whatever. But it kind of created this bad blood from that point out between us three trying to work together in the future, which we tried to, and it just blew up. It got really weird on there, and we'll maybe talk about that. I don't know. But Freeman Fly, really big name. They're trying to. Alonzo says he's trying to get me on that show. He's been trying to get me on there with Freeman. But that moves us on to the next show, number 75, which is Mental Alchemy, Transformation Through Trauma with Alonzo Pichardo. So I ended up having Alonzo on sometime later after that fell apart when I started just doing the TruthSeekah podcast. I had Alonzo on to talk about his story. And that right there, man, that was a good episode, guys. You guys need to go back and listen to that one if you haven't yet. Alonzo talking about trauma, talking about having a bad childhood and making something of it, and still, getting into spirituality and getting into he got tied in with the Mormons, I believe it was, and he just kind of gave his perspective on his interaction with the Mormons and stuff. And he had a crazy childhood. Like his mom, he came home from school one day and his mom was gone along with everything in the house. He came home to an empty house. His mom just left him yep, raise yourself. He was a little kid. He was at school. He had to quit school the next day and get a job, and he was living by himself as a kid. His mom left him, said she couldn't take it anymore. Called him and said, "You're not my son no more." He's crying, on the phone. This is some really, really emotional episode, but really, that was a good episode, guys. Number 75. 74, Lori Ivy, Spiritual Awakening and the Path to Ascension. Lori Ivy's a really cool chick. She's over a bunch of groups and stuff on Facebook, and I've been working with her for a while. She's an admin over the Mythicist page, is the page that we manage from the Mythicist podcast. She would help promote my work through that, and she's over so many groups and stuff. So really cool girl. I wanted to have her on to hear her story. Had her on. She shared her experiences and where she was headed and stuff. So yeah, that's who Lori Ivy is. That was a really cool show too. Number 73, Jesus Camp. Where are they now? Levi O'Brien. Jesus Camp documentary. If you haven't seen that, watch it. It hits home because it comes from the charismatic Christian stuff that's really, 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 really right wing, and then charismatic kind of overboard right wing. They came in and did a documentary on their revival, and specifically this lady who was in your face Trump, not Trump supporter, but at the time it was a Bush supporter when the documentary came out. So anyway, got the kids crying and repenting, and little, 6-year-olds making 6-year-olds repent of their sins to follow Jesus. And then you hear their testimonies from a 6-year-old. I was living a life of sin when God found me. It's bro, you're 6. So that got a lot of mainstream coverage because it was cult-like. And the people who came to film, I don't know if they didn't tell him or what, but they gave him permission, signed the contracts to film the documentary, and they put scary music to it and made it seem so much more darker than it was. A lot of that stuff is normal for kids in the charismatic communities and churches, right? So I talked to Levi O'Brien, which was a little kid at the time, one of the 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, whatever. I don't know how old he was, but he was preaching. He was a little kid preacher, and he had a little long rat tail and stuff. And they, the producers of the documentary, followed him and his story and stuff, and went in the world for Jesus at 10 years old or whatever the case is. So very interesting documentary, and I got the chance to talk to him, which was really cool to see where he was at now, and just to talk to him and build with him. So it was fun, man. Somebody, I watched it years ago, and to have him on my show was really cool. So, interesting documentary, Jesus Camp. I will say this, though. There's one thing that I feel bad about. Something that happened, okay? Something that happened in that interview. And it's happened in another interview, too. My buddy Drew Gower, right? We come from the church realm. We know the cliches and the pastors and what they're known for. And, I like to do voices at times. I got a voice of an old, bitter Southern Baptist preacher that I do. His name's Brother Wayne. That's my voice. I do that. I had a really cool YouTube channel that got deleted. It was just for fun, where we would go in, kind of based off of that character is like based off of like the Vigilant Christian, and then all of these people who everybody has a exposing channel where they're exposing people. And so I did like this old Baptist, and a lot of the exposing stuff is just way out of left field. So I did it with him. So my voice is kind of going off with just talking for so long, but I'll try to do the voice really quick if you guys haven't heard it. So essentially, Brother Wayne would do a video talking about, let's just say, a really good Christian band, would say Skillet. And there's videos now about Skillet being a demonic band. So I did one and got into the voice. I'll try to get into character, but it's essentially, how you doing? I want to tell all of you right now, hey, Skillet's of the devil. Everything they're doing is not of God. I want you to know one thing. If God seen Skillet at concert, he'd rebuke him right now. I want to tell you the Lord is good in mercy, but Skillet, he don't really play with Skillet that much. I want to tell you one thing. Praise God. Look, you want to come to my church, you're going to have to tithe abundantly, exceeding and beyond. Praise God. And so I would do that voice and do these videos. I wouldn't show my face though. People thought it was a real person, you know? And so I would do Brother Wayne. Drew, I did some with Drew and my buddy Drew Gower. And so he would call in and we do voices together. Drew Gower does a really good impersonation of his name, Lou Engle. And if I try to do Lou Engle now, it's probably going to tear my voice. But he's like, Lou Engle, if you know church culture, he's a little short, balding man who rocks back and forth. When he prays for God to end abortion, God, send angels, God. And he's like really extravagant with his prayer and stuff. And Jeremiah Revolution. So Drew does a perfect Lou Engle voice. I also have another friend who does a good Billy Graham, Reggie. So anyway, Lou Engle was in the Jesus Camp documentary. And he did that. He gets up there and he prays for the kid. There's a generation that God's raising up, a generation of warriors, you know, and all this stuff. And so Drew calls in, and this kid from Jesus Camp, he really drew close to Lou Engle during the documentary. And Drew, and we planned it out. I said, Drew, call in, man, and do your Lou Engle voice, and then we'll tell him it's a joke. You know, just call in and say hello, and then tell him it's a joke. Well, he calls in and he does his Lou Engle voice, and he says, hey, Levi, I'm praise God what you're doing, and you're a young man after God's heart. And the dude was blown away. He was like almost in tears from the phone call, and I was like, oh, like I didn't want to ruin it for him, so I was like, hey, Lou. And the weird thing about Brother Wayne, which made my character Brother Wayne so funny, is that it would be regular stuff, and then we'd go way left field and then try to reel it in. You know what I'm saying? So we would try to be legit, and then we'd go super far left. It's comedy gold. I love it. And we try to bring it back and stay in character. And so Drew did that with the guy. So the guy was like, oh, Lou, I love you, brother. Your words mean so much to me, and you changed my life, Lou. And I was like, oh, wow. We can't really kill this for the kid, right? So Drew's on there. He's like talking about like, hold on, guys. I'm at the drive-thru at McDonald's. I'll have a number 1 extra ketchup. I need extra ketchup. All right, guys, I'm back. And he would just do little funny stuff, and like it was insane. But it's like, look, we can't really ruin it for this kid now. You know what I'm saying? Like it'll ruin him. But so you look at, like, I know Joe Rogan would always talk about like the psychedelic dimension, and you feel like you met these beings and these angelic entities that came to you on psychedelics. And did you really meet those entities? Were they really there? Or was it all a figment of your imagination? Either way, your experience is still the same. The information that they brought forward, the communication that they had with you, it all transforms and changes your life, and you still feel like you had that encounter. So I guess that's kind of like the stance I took with Levi, because like, even though like he didn't really talk to Lou Engle, he felt like he did, and he went on, you know, from that day forward, Lou Engle believes in me, you know, and this encouragement and stuff. So I'm just trying to like make sense of it all, you know what I'm saying? Chris Garner says you had me fooled with the Brother Wayne stuff. I knew it was an inside joke, but I never knew it was you until now. Yeah, when we did the Trolls thing, man, I recorded Brother Wayne calling in as a caller and going in on each person who was on the show. I think we had 6 of us at the time, and Brother Wayne would call in, and it was fun because it was the first time I was able to interact with my character. So I recorded it, and it's like, hey, how you doing, TruthSeekah? You got that all-seeing eye on your hat. I want you to take the hat off right now. I want you to praise God. Take your hat off, son, and the man of God. I believe in your calling, son. And I was able to interview, like, talk back and forth, and I left pauses there. What you mean, Brother Wayne? What's the deal? You need to put a shirt on to cover up your tattoos, young man. And then I went in on each person and gave them room to talk. So it was really cool when I did that. But and I thought about trying to do a whole episode on the TruthSeekah podcast, maybe episode 100, but we had another guest for that. But I thought about trying to do it. You know what I'm saying? Now that you guys, I killed the magic behind it, you guys know it's me. It would be a whole episode, a whole hour or whatever of me talking to myself, and it would kill the magic. But for those of you who would think that it's a real person, it could be entertaining, right? So I'm probably not going to do it now, but yeah, that's Brother Wayne, and that's the Jesus Camp and Lou Engle and the voices and stuff. He did that on another show too, some other Christian guy we did, and he called in as Lou Engle or whatever. But anyway, episode 72, Tim Freak, The Deep Awake, how meditation practice induces spiritual awakening. This episode, man, I don't think we're going to make it all the way down to all these episodes. I may have to stop at a certain number because we're almost 2 hours in. May make this 2 parts or something. The Tim Freak, I found out about Tim Freak through Freeman Fly. So he had him as a guest on his show. I listened to the episode. I loved it. I was like, I got to reach out to this dude. So had him on my show. We talked about meditation. Really good episode. Good episode. If you haven't heard that one, Tim Freak, The Deep Awake. That's the name of his thing. 71. Spirits in the Sky, Michael Basham. That was the first time I talked with Michael Basham. He's a really cool guy. He's in Taiwan. He's an American, but he lives in Taiwan now, where he's teaching and training people how to speak English. That's what he does for a profession there now. But he's also like a missionary, teaches them the Bible and stuff too. So he's in Taiwan doing that. Really cool guy. He's a part of the Fringe Radio Network, which they picked me up. So now I'm part of that network and in that community. So really cool first interview with Michael Basham. Really good. The next one we have, this is an older one, but for some reason I guess I uploaded it late. Like I was like going back to get some of the good stuff out the archives to bring that I thought should be on here. This is an interview on number 70 called Haunted Alabama, The Serpents of Bienville, Cults, UFOs, and Religion. This is an interview with Sean Herman, who is a phenomenal tattoo artist, but he has this thing called The Serpents of Bienville, where they research Alabama's ghost stories and occult history and stuff like that, and gives you a lot of background story on lore and different myths and sightings and stuff like that. So really cool. And he'll do like an art piece on it too. So since he's an artist, he'll draw a picture of what we talked about a little bit on the show was a Crybaby Bridge, and we found there's a bridge that you drive across, and it, the lore goes that somebody threw a baby off the bridge, a mother threw a baby, and if you go over the bridge really slow, you can hear the baby. But we could find out like there's a Crybaby Bridge in almost like every city, like all over the U.S. You know what I'm saying? So that was a good episode. He's a really cool guy. So that's that. Number 69 was TruthSeekah Breaks Down Chromatica song lyrics. That's essentially what it is. It's an hour of me going through each of my lyrics from some of my songs. This particular one was Chromatica. I'm probably going to do more of those. I think they really stand out for people who are fans of the music. But it's interesting as well because I took an hour and 44 minutes talking about those lyrics. And there's several other songs that I've covered too since then. Let's see. Number 68 is Mary Rodwell, Psychic Abilities, UFOs, and Alien Contact. Mary Rodwell is been doing it for a long time in ufology with alien contact and linking it to spirituality. A really cool lady, really big name in ufology. I enjoyed talking to her. That was a good interview. Like I said, there was times she would share and I would link stuff back to the Bible, you know, and it's really cool to see their faces light up when they like it. You know what I'm saying? Oh, wow, they really appreciate it. And then other people get mad when you bring up the Bible, you know what I'm saying? These different guests. So really cool interview. I enjoyed that one. Number 67, The God Warrior, Marguerite Perrin from ABC's Trading Spouses. There's a couple interviews that I get a lot of traffic to on my website from Google. People type in their name, my website comes up. This is one here. I think I had the #1 ranking for a long time, maybe still do. The God Warrior, Marguerite Perrin. You have to watch that entire episode. That was insane. But this aired probably, this probably aired in like 2007 maybe. I don't know what year it was in, but she was essentially as a Trading Spouses. They took this more conservative Southern Christian lady and they sent her to go live in a house with some pagans, a psychic lady and her family, and they did like the solstice and equinox parties and all that kind of stuff. She went and stayed with there, and she like had panic attacks. Like she couldn't be around it. She felt like she was under attack. You know what I'm saying? And it was just way out of her comfort zone. She got famous because she blew up. Like when she went home, she was having breakdowns the whole time, and then when she got home, she just blew up on her family. And they give you a check, for being on the show, like $50,000, but that person gets to pick what you spend the money on, like the other person you traded positions with, because they get to live your life and they get to see, okay, this needs help, the house needs help, the husband wants to do this or whatever. So she freaked out, tore the check up, and very dramatic breakdown. So I actually met her in person years ago. I went over there and went to her house. They invited me over for a cookout and spent the day with her and her family. So that was really cool. So we got to catch up. We talked a lot about the show, and then we also talked a lot about Ponchatoula, Louisiana, where she lives, and that's where I grew up. I grew up in the same city, so we talked about like places to eat and different little bitty small cities around there. So it was really cool, especially if you're from the area. Episode number 66, TruthSeekah breaks down the Golden Teachers song lyrics. That's exactly what that is, me talking about my song Golden Teachers. So listen to that one if you want to go into some information on that. 65, 7 of Hog Mob being an outcast in the ugly side of Christian ministry. 7 of Hog Mob is a Christian rapper. When I talk about people who are doing it right, he's doing it right. He goes into the ghettos and hoods all across the U.S. and shares his testimony, his love for Jesus, and changing lives, man. Really, really good dude. I'm connected with him. I built his website. I also built Illuminate's website. A lot of these Christian rappers, like, I build websites on the side, so I was able to do there. So I'm over his site, so I have communication with him through that. But he came on the show. Really good episode. Talk about being ghosted from Christianity and like the bad side about Christian ministry, and just talk about the stuff that you don't see, you know what I'm saying, that goes on behind the scenes that can either make you or break you. You can let it break you, man. The stuff that goes on, the dirty stuff that churches do, that and they ghost you. But I will say this, what stands out to me right now about that episode is the fact that one of his followers, it's the networking. I talked about the power of networking. So I do a show with 7. His people are going to be Googling his name. They're going to find this interview, and I may win them over. They may become TruthSeekah fans. They may become fans of the podcast and grow with the audience. They may not. They may find, like I said, those trigger things that make them run. The all-seeing eye on your hat, run. Stay away from him. So anyway, he had what he called me up and had contention because a baby Christian, is what he said, was listening to my show with him, and maybe they clicked on another one, maybe they liked it, then they heard another one, which is, some of these shows are night and day. Some of these shows are with Christian ministers, and we keep it all about Christianity. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of that one, I know for a fact I did talk about mushrooms and things like that. But, I have everybody from all walks of life on here. You know what I'm saying? So What's up, Hunter? Joining us in the chat. Gave you a shout out earlier, man. Talked about you a little bit. So anyway, one of his fans was listening, and they contacted him and was like, hey, TruthSeekahs talking about tarot cards and how blah, 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 blah. Seven calls me and says, hey, TruthSeekah, I got a question for you, man. One of my fans was listening to your show because I was on it, and you told him to get tarot cards to talk to God. I said, no, never said such thing. I do have a set of what can be categorized as Christian tarot cards. They're called tarots, the tarot of the Most High. And I talked about it. I definitely didn't say that you should get cards to talk to God. I said, maybe God will talk to you through these cards. Definitely would say that and vouch for that. Just like God will talk to you through anything. I've had God talk to me through watching an episode of Sesame Street before. And God read my life, and it played my life story, and he gave me revelation. So I believe God can use anything. So I told him that, and I told him my stance and told him my beliefs and stuff, and I won him over. I was on the phone with him for about an hour, and eventually won him over, and he understood what I was saying, and I told him my aim. And so yeah, that's what stands out to me about that too. He did call me and check me, but then other people have said you should give a warning or a disclaimer at the beginning of your videos. It's like, I do. If you listen to my intro, some people complain that it's so long, but it's done for like a comedic reason. But it's truth too, though. Like the lady who comes on and says, be warned that listening to this show can increase alien contact and psychic abilities, UFO experiences, blah, 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 ESP, dreams, visions, like all of that stuff. So that's essentially the disclaimer. And then it says we're exploring esoterics, metaphysics, and spiritual conversation, all things spiritual. That's your disclaimer. Like if most Christians, they're going to hear that and they're going to turn away. Yeah, I don't want to talk about aliens or whatever, but some people, you're interested in that. It calls you and you're cool with it. So that's the disclaimer. Joshua says, I love the intro. Thanks, bro. All right. Number 64, Brandon Barthrop, The Christian Crack House in the Drunken Glory of God. Okay. So this is the first time I interviewed Brandon Barthrop, which was several years ago, had him on. And I talk about my relationship with him, like finding his work. And the first time I found him, like I think I sent him a dirty message. This is when I was in church, and he's like talking about the glory of God. Then he's acting like he's getting high. He's acting like he's holding a joint, and they have bongs and they take hits and then they hold it in and like, oh my God, the glory. And it's a whole movement. The glory guys, a whole bunch of people follow him and stuff. And so when I first found it, I sent him a message. I was like, bro, you acting like you're smoking meth, but you're giving glory to God. So I sent him a dirty message. And then some years later, I ran across him again and listened to what he was saying, and it was right for me at where I was at in my walk. And I was like, man, this is some good stuff. Like, dude is really on some good stuff. So I was like, let me get him on my show. Then we got him on the show. We built together. We talked about, and it was right at the time I interviewed Illuminati Congo, and we talked about breath work and the pranayama and things like that. So I linked the two together. I linked, the breath work and toking the ghost is what they call it. Toking the Holy Spirit, and you can get high off of breathing. So I kind of linked the two together, and it was a pretty cool discussion. I had him on. Then I had him on again a couple episodes down. And I'll talk about that when I had him on again. We'll go into a little bit more detail. But anyway, that was, how I got introduced to Brandon Barthrop. Number 63, Dan Oskopinski, The Path of the Christian Mystic. One of the best interviews we've done. This was an in-studio interview. Me and Dan. Dan was actually here with me in person. Dan was a really cool guy. And we just were open about our walk. We're open about the struggle of being who we were called to be, and should we talk about mushrooms? Should we do this? Should we do that? And the burning of books. Like we went through, like we got rid of books and esoteric stuff and tried to go back to church, and like we talk about that struggle. We've went back and forth many times, so we talked about it in there. Dano is still going back and forth. So it is what it is. It's a good episode though. Really go back and listen to that. The next one is another Jordan Maxwell interview, number 62. Jordan Maxwell, The Dark Side of Religion and the True Meaning of Words. This next Jordan most of the Jordan Maxwell interviews are similar. You know, it is what you get. If you like Jordan Maxwell, you know what it is. You got to put up with some BS at times, but if you can hold on to some of the truths, it can be turned into a good episode. Okay, so then we interviewed Brandon Barthrop again. And I interviewed him again. It came back into my mind just to have him on because I seen that Vice, because Brandon Barthrop was interviewed by Vice about this whole Drunken Glory and Token the Ghost and stuff like that. Vice, the HBO series, they interview for a lot of fringe weird stuff. So they went and interviewed Brandon. I thought they did a good job on his documentary, right? I thought they did a great job. So we talked about that, and actually me and Dano had him on this one. Dano was with me on this one. When we did this interview. And so I wanted to do the interview again because Vice uploaded a clip to their Facebook from his documentary that came out some years ago, and that thing blew up. And like everybody's talking about Brandon online. I was like, you know what, since this is kind of coming back up, let me have Brandon on. We'll talk about the documentary some more, you know, and I liked Brandon, you know what I'm saying? So I had him on. And that brought his name back out to the forefront. And as I shared, you know, that I was going to have him on, people were like, hey, man, stay away from that guy. That guy is on some weird stuff, bro. You know, and I was like, and he is, you know, aren't we all, though? Right. So I try to take up for him. I see the good that Brandon's doing. And this Brandon thing brings a lot of stuff to the table because I see the good that he's doing. Right. Yeah, he's weird. He's bat crap crazy. You know what I'm saying? He's doing weird stuff. Token the Ghost, walking around acting like he's high. All kind of weird doctrines, you know. Playing the victim. A lot of weird stuff that's probably dangerous, you know, can be dangerous. He's talking about having sex with God, having sex with Jesus, intercourse where they're like, you know, he got into curse words. And that's what I named this one, Curse Words, Mimicking Followers in the Vice documentary. Maybe he got mad at the title. I don't know. Who knows? But I had him on and we talked about that stuff because the Vice thing was blowing up. Got millions of views within like 3 or 4 days. It got like 6, 7, 8 million views. So people are telling me, look, don't interview this guy. Stay away from him. He's bad news. So it's like, you know what? He got some weird stuff. I'll admit it. But he's doing good. Like he's helping people get off the street. Like he's taking in drug addicts. He's doing the work of the ministry. That's what I'm about. He's doing that and it's working. He's effective. Even though he is weird, crazy as all get out, he's effective. So I believe in that. So I had him on and shared him. And I had people who are in my audience, they drew the line there. They drew the line with Brandon Barthrop, you know. And it's like, you know, if you're doing this, your level of discernment is so off, TruthSeekah. If you're promoting Brandon Barthrop, I'm done. Trust me. I got that. And I said, you know what? I believe in Brandon, man. We're going to do it. So I did the interview, and maybe because of the name, like I do pick names of, I try to name my episodes in ways that would show up in the search engines, that would pique your interest. And we talked about this stuff. We talked about Brandon cursing because Brandon Barthrop went on this weird tirade where he was wanting to curse everybody. Like he was cursing, he was quote unquote redeeming curse words, and it got really bad. Like he was like it was like disgusting bad. But I kind of seen what he was doing and why he was doing it. Checking people, checking a religious spirit at the door. I could see it. I can ride with it. Let's work with it. And then we talked about mimicking followers. That his followers started doing it. His followers started cursing people out and being rude to people. And I was like, wow, okay. It's one thing when Brandon does it, but when your followers are doing it, it's getting kind of weird because like they're just rude people. You're just giving these people an excuse to be rude and be obnoxious and cursing. And they're talking about having sex with demons. And if you're a Christian, all Christians are having sex with demons. And he would be descriptive of the sexual positions and the things that are being done. So it got really weird. So obviously why people would say stay away from him, right? I had him on the show again. Sometime after, I guess he kind of looked into some more of what I do and the companies that I entertain and the alien interviews. And I was a part of his group, and I would share my videos in his group and stuff. And some people liked it. We shared like a similar audience, right? Friends, Christians who are not into church, but they love God, they love the spirit of God, the presence of God, and but they're into other stuff. So people would ask him, because they had listened to my show, kind of like the whole 7 thing. They would say, hey, TruthSeekahs talking about aliens, TruthSeekahs talking about mushrooms. What is your opinion? And then he started getting that a lot because the show was getting momentum, you know what I'm saying? And people would go back to him and they would post and they have open discussion about me and my show and stuff. And eventually Brandon kicked me out the group, but I didn't know who kicked me out. And I wrote Brandon, I said, hey, Brandon, you know what I'm saying? What happened, bro? Like, I'm not in the group anymore. I think somebody banned me. He said, yeah, I did. And he went off on this tirade and cursed me out and was like, God is going to destroy you and you're not doing this for God anymore. And you left your first love and the anointing is not with you anymore. And it was like, and I told him straight, I was like, hey, that's what your enemies say about you, bro. Like, what's the deal? You know? And, so anyway, that kind of ended that friendship and that relationship, but he like sicked his followers on me and stuff, and they used to inboxing me and like tracking me down and sending me crazy messages and stuff. It's so insane dealing with some of these people. But Brandon Barthrop, like after that thing, that's the end of our relationship. So it's kind of weird. But yeah, that's the background on that. Episode 60, TruthSeekah breaks down Gateway to the Seer Realm song lyrics. That's what that is. I think it's one of my favorite songs, one of my best songs. And I talk about how I got those lyrics, how those lyrics came to me. That's episode 60. Here we go. 59. Bill Bean, Paranormal Activity, Ghost Encounters in the Spirit Realm. Bill Bean's a really cool guy. I've interviewed him a couple times. His story stands out to me because it's somewhat similar. I talked to him about personal experiences because he's a Christian minister, deliverance counselor, deliverance minister. He travels to do exorcisms and house clearings and stuff like that. He's had television shows that featured his story as the plot and stuff. He came up in a house that was haunted and plagued by demons that tried to destroy him and his family, and he's got books on it and stuff. He's a really cool guy. So had him on, and we talked about some years ago this CBN in the 700 Club, which is like the Christian television show. They went out and they did a documentary on him. Like they shot a story. They got his story about demons and, fighting the spirit realm and stuff like that. And they were going to feature, and they had a date that it was supposed to air, and he was ready for it to come out. He was watching it. He was promoting it. He's itching to see it. That date came. They didn't play it. So, he wrote them. They said, okay, we pushed it back. Something came up. So here's your next date. This is when it's going to air. That date came and went. They didn't air. Come to find out, they pulled it, and they're not going to air it because somebody wrote in and they did some research that Bill Bean was having UFO encounters as well that he was open about. Bill Bean would go out and he would be led by intuition to take pictures of the sky in certain areas. And then when he would have the film developed, there would be UFOs there. So he felt like he was in contact with these angelic beings and stuff. And he posted the pictures on his website. And he would do a few interviews talking about it. They found out that he promotes that, and they pulled it. Said, we can't promote this guy. He's into some new age and occultism and stuff like that. So, yep, that's what happened with that. Let's see. That was the 59. The next one, 58, it was with a guy named Grills. He's a spiritual rapper. Had him on the show to talk about his encounters with UFOs and about his music and stuff. It was a pretty cool interview, talking about hip hop. Next one again is was a popular one. Well, is a popular one. 57, which is Santos Bonacci again, talking about flat Earth. I've stayed away from flat Earth. I talked about the reason I stayed away from flat Earth. I don't know, I don't really. My opinion doesn't matter. I can't prove it. You know what I'm saying? And I like to talk about stuff that I can prove or stuff that I can that can affect you and change your life. You know what I'm saying? I don't think flat Earth's one of them. It is used for awakening. Like some people wake up to the truth of the government and they begin to ask the bigger questions. So it's being used there. But that interview with Santos Bonacci about flat Earth, his walks taking a toll upon him too. You know what I'm saying? He's a different person. His research has changed over the years. But that was a decent interview. That's the only time I've ever really discussed flat Earth or looked into it, really. I've done some research, but as far as like being vocal about it, some people have wanted me to tell my stance on it just so they can, because you're either, the people who are with it, they love you, they'll follow you, because we did have another guy on who talks about it, but the people who are with it, they love it. But the people who are against it, they mock you, mark you, and belittle you and stuff like that. So I didn't want to get into that. I value what I am bringing to the table a little bit too much to get into that. That's why I drew the line, flat Earth, just because I seen what it was doing to people. I seen what it did to Santos. The next one was Danny Wilton, and at the time, seemingly Danny Wilton and Santos were beefing about flat Earth and about a bunch of stuff. So it was really weird to have Santos Bonacci on and then have Danny Wilton right after. So we talked about the mystery of the Orion Nebula. Danny Wilton, I talk about in this episode, was the first interview that I did years ago, like in 2012 or so. Danny Wilton was the first guest that I had on. It was a good interview. I talked about some of my personal UFO encounters that had to deal with Orion, the Orion Nebula. I will say from my personal experience, like I love Danny Wilton's early work too about the Orion Nebula. He's got pictures of the Orion Nebula and some of Michelangelo's paintings of God and Adam and stuff, and how it looks like the Orion Nebula is hidden within the picture and a bunch of the old church art and stuff. Really cool stuff. So I really like Danny Wilton's older work. Next is 55, Aliens, Meditation, Psychic Abilities, Astral Travel, and about TruthSeekah interview. Okay, so this was an interview that I did with Lionel Anderson, the alien contactee. This was me going on his show. So this was me going, he started a little podcast thing, and I went on there with Robin, me and Robin and him. And so he interviewed me and talked about my music and stuff. So I just uploaded that to my show. So that's the interview with me there. Pretty good. Next is episode 54, Andrew Schwab of Project 86. I come up listening to a lot of Christian rap, a lot of Christian metal back in the day. This was probably like 2002, 2001 when I got into the band Project 86. So I really looked up to Andrew Schwab of being vocal about his faith, and so it's a Christian rap metal band, but he rapped and told like aggressive poetry over the music, much like the Garrett Russell from Silent Planet. That's why, like, I did mention that Garrett was like an offshoot of Schwab, which, you know, had been doing this for a long time. So we talked about rapcore, and there was the rise and fall of rapcore as a genre when Korn got big, Limp Bizkit, you know, and all that stuff, Papa Roach. And then we seen how like all those bands had to change their sound to stay relevant. They couldn't keep rapping. There was an era where that died when hardcore got really big. So we talked about that. Really good to talk to him, because he's up there on my list of people who are who I look up to in the faith. So it was really cool. The next one, 53, the spirit realm, demonic entities, sleep paralysis, and the dark side. This is an interview I did with Spirit of Truth. I will say Spirit of Truth is featured on the new album, TruthSeekah and Spirit of Truth. The song is called I Am. It's a beautiful song. It is available on Patreon right now. It will be, I think we're going to shoot a video to it very soon. So make sure you check that out. But yeah, that was a cool interview. He's a hip hop artist as well, but he's I think he's a newly Christian, maybe within the last year or so. So he's into like ancient aliens and a lot of deep esoteric stuff and spiritual stuff, but now he's a Christian too. So it's really, really cool, building with him over the last few months. And, cool too. I'll say this about our relationship, just to give you guys a little inside look at our relationship. He wants to talk to me about doctrine and stuff a lot. And there's things that I stay away from, even with him. Like, he wants to get my opinion on this, and then he kind of wants to argue. And it's not just him. If it was just him, I really wouldn't give the example, but it's a lot of Christians who do that. And I told him I don't do that. Like, I don't want to debate him about the Trinity, and that's essentially what it was about. Was Jesus God, or was Jesus the Son of God? And people would take that little bitty thing. It's the same thing, either or. The Son of God or God, the same thing. To me, it's the same thing. But there's people who would debate you, and they will defriend you. Like, that's a contention with them. If you don't believe exactly like they believe with the Trinity and stuff, they write you off. They call you a heretic and stay away. For something that small, you know. Which in the end, I feel like we're saying the same thing, just saying it differently. Really doesn't change anything for me. So I told him, like, he tries to talk to me. Hey, well, you know, let me show you why. And I'll say, you know, there's these scriptures that stand out, and I don't know. You know, I have my opinion, And so I, just an example of why I don't really go into detail with close friends about some of that stuff, because I've seen what it can do to friendships. I've had friends who, even with that same subject, the Trinity, they won't talk to me anymore, and they tell people to stay away from me because of my view of the Trinity, that I think that Jesus was the Son of God and not God. You know what I'm saying? I didn't think God left the earth, left heaven to become a man, and he left his throne. No, Jesus is praying, talking to his Father. He has a relationship with his Father. He showed us how to have a relationship with our Father. You know what I'm saying? He was an example. But as far as God, was he God? No. They say fully God and fully man. He said, when you look at me, you see the Father. See, he said, when you look at me, you see the Father. Look, when you look at me, you see the Father. I made in his very image and likeness as well. Number 52, deliverance ministry, healing inner wounds and childhood trauma with Anthony Cummins. Me and Anthony go back. We were in a group together, a hip hop worship group that was really good, anointed, beautiful for the time that it was here. We would go to churches, we would go to youth centers, and we would perform. I would rap my story and rap about Jesus, and he would sing beautiful. Dude's a psalmist, man. Dude can sing, and you just feel the presence of God ushered in. Sometimes you cry, like, dude is legit. He no longer really does that because of church hurt. Thank you, Christian church. Now this guy doesn't even play music because he was a worship leader, and he's seen the bad stuff that goes on and being used by churches because of his gift and because of his talent, and you guys throw him away because he didn't want, you know what I'm saying? This goes on for so many people. And it happened to him. Dude's awesome. He won't touch the guitar. He won't. It's insane. People fast and pray and wish that they had the talent that this guy has, and they won't, he doesn't touch it anymore. It sucks. It's a waste. But me and him were good friends. We did that. We talked about deliverance ministry. We've both been through inner healing, childhood wounds and traumas. Really good show. Really good show, actually. At this point, we're not on speaking terms. I'll say that. Where I stand with these guests, he blew up on me. And so when we were in that group broke up because the big thing that pushed me over the edge with the Christian community here locally, especially, was the fact that I did an interview with a guy. I need to edit it and re-upload it. But I did an interview with a guy back in the day about the Kundalini being the same thing as the Holy Spirit. And this guy had some scriptures and some teaching on that. So we did that interview, and I entitled that interview, "The Kundalini is the Holy Spirit, what your pastor is not telling you." And so some people from the church that we were supposed to perform at seen that one. They seen that interview, and that's like, nope, we can't have it. Like this girl, she made a big deal about it at the cave in Kimakival. It's kind of weird, but anyway, she made a big deal about it and went to the pastor and stuff like that. So anyway, they had a TruthSeekah gossip party, Anthony and the church and stuff, and and that was just like the defining moment for me. It kind of needed to happen, though. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of how it happened. But I had him on the show, and he used to blow up on me. Like, we'd be cool, we're really good friends, but he'd go through Facebook and blow up on me. He wouldn't do it in person, wouldn't do it over the phone or face to face. He'd be a keyboard coward, like a lot of people are, and he would only come at me through these long, you're following Manly P. Hall. Manly P. Hall is a Mason, and he's burning in hell, and you're promoting Manly P. Hall, and he would just go off on me, right? And you need to repent, and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, whoa, bro, like, you're coming at me crazy. So, but then that was years ago. It was like 2013 or so, and we weren't speaking for a while. He moved away, got married, and we wasn't speaking in a while. We kind of rekindled the relationship, did this interview. I did some work for him on his website, promo stuff, all that good stuff. And then he blew up on me again, even because I seen some growth there. He grew a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like I could say he had more grace about him. It wasn't about finding contention with people who didn't believe like he believed. But eventually I said something, and he called me a Gnostic, and I said, dude, I I have articles that say I don't believe the Gnostic Gospels. Why would you call me a Gnostic? And he just goes in it on and on and on, and then blew up on me again, just like he did back in 2013. So I was like, all right, bro, that's, forget you, bro. I'm done. So anyway, that was my last words with Anthony Cummings. And so that's just, just give you guys some background on me blowing up on my guest. Let's see. 51. Return to nature. Psychedelics and our mystical connection with the plant kingdom. This was with a dude called Dandelion, a Facebook dude. He's an expert on edible plants and the healing properties of plants and things like that. Really good episode, man, about nature, about getting back into nature, getting out in nature, and talking about the plants that you can consume. And then probably about the second half of the show was talking about our encounters with psychedelics and the spirits that are behind it. And, when you consume plants, you're communicating with these spirits and stuff. So really cool episode. I would, I definitely recommend that one. Number 50, Rory Campbell. I may stop here at 50 and then do another episode tomorrow or whenever, going through the other 50. So we may just call this the first 50 and then the second 50 because my voice is going out. Episode 50, Rory Campbell, the shaman poet, spirituality and oneness. So I like to tap into other people's fan base, right? I like to, when people are doing their thing and they're doing it good. Chris, you said, no, bro, I ain't gonna be able to talk, brother. I'm in 50, bro. I'm already in 2 hours and 15 minutes, man. I got 50 more to go, man. I don't think I could do it. I keep talking, TruthSeekah. Y'all gonna skin me up, boy. So anyway, Rory, he would go live on Facebook and have all these people watching, and I liked a lot of his stuff. So I had him on as a guest. Hey, come on and tell your story. We tap into the fan base. You know what I'm saying? I like what you're doing. Tell them what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Let's work together, right? That's okay. So I had him on. He shared his story. It was pretty cool interview, pretty cool podcast. But then there's something that happened recently, like a lot of people this happens to when people get a platform, and I've went through it. I've noticed it coming. I didn't go through it. I noticed I noticed it coming. But once you get a platform and you get a name for yourself, you draw all types of people watching, right? And this guy, and it ain't just him, but he left his wife and kids for a younger woman. He'd been with his wife for years, and now he's got this Facebook fame where thousands of people are watching him. They love him. They see him as a spiritual leader. And there's this thing where women want to get with spiritual leaders. I've gotten it over the years. I still get it. You have to be careful. You know what I'm saying? It comes with the territory. It comes with the platform. You can't fall. You can't enter. There's certain situations you can't be in. You can't entertain things, especially if you're a married man. It ain't going to work. And he ended up leaving his wife to be with this younger woman. And now they're going live on Facebook. And I think his wife got into his profile because Chris Bars is commenting now, because he's the one that told me, say, the Shaman Poet is the new show. I guess he has another show now, but he's kind of moved on. He lost a lot of his stuff because his wife came on his account and was posting, telling everybody what he was doing. You know what I'm saying? She got into his account and posted it. Everybody said, hey, who's this? He had a lot of people backing him and promoting him and stuff. And it wasn't just him. It was a lot of other people. Over the years, I've seen pastors and pastors and leaders and stuff leave their wife of 20 years to be with a young, better, good-looking version of their wife. They trade them in. The guy gets up there in years. He wants to relive his childhood. He's got all these women who want to be with him. He picks one. He does it. Look, trust me. I've seen so many people do this. I get messages in my inbox from people trying to hit on me and tell me all kind of stuff. People trying to send me pictures of themselves and stuff. Like, I'm not into that. Keep your pictures. I don't want them. But that's something that comes. So I posted a status update I didn't tag him. I didn't direct it at him, but it kind of was. But it was broad because there was another case that had just recently happened of one of my old pastors left his wife for his nanny for this, and the nanny was, 20-some years old, skinny, good-looking chick in the church, and his wife was, she's out of shape, had been with her for so long, and he was ready to trade her in. And it happened. I don't think that's okay, man. I don't think that's okay. I'm against that. So I did a status and said, look, if you guys out here becoming Facebook gurus, getting a following and then leaving your wife for the first young woman that gives you some attention, I said, you failed the first test, bro. Not cool. You failed the first test. And I mean it. I didn't tag Rory in it, but got a lot of likes, a lot of shares, and that's universal. Is it for Rory? Yes. Is it for my old pastor? Yes. Is it for these other guys out there? Yeah, man, this is something we all got to deal with. You got to protect yourself, man. This is going to come. I've seen it from day one. And then so Rory eventually wrote me because he got a lot of shares. And hey, bro, TruthSeekah called you out or whatever. And then he asked me, he's like, did you call me out? I said, no, it wasn't directed at you, bro. It's just a general statement. But and I told him straight up, And he's like, well, brother, I didn't do this, and we just grown out of love. He just kind of gave his excuse or whatever, but you know what I'm saying, to justify it. But yeah, I'm not cool with that stuff. I'm not cool with y'all using your platform to take advantage of these young women and leaving your family, man. That's demonic. That's straight demonic, man. The scriptures talk about that. It says, if you don't take care of your home, it says you're worse than an infidel. How you going to leave you single again? You out there mingling. You playing the field. You 24 again. You 18 again. You really 45. You need to calm your ass down and sit down somewhere. You know what I'm saying? You give the kids over to your wife and you get to start over and go out there and relive that second childhood. No, that's not good. It's not good. So anyway, that was the episode 50 with Rory Campbell. I'm already 2 hours and 20 minutes in. I don't think I can go through another 50. I don't think I could do it, Chris. I think I may stop here and just do another part, a part 2. That's what I'm going to do. Come at it fresh. This is the first 50. I'm going to rename this the first 50. Yes. 100 episodes in, guys. This is 50 that I'm going through. 2.5 hours interview. I'll do it again. Let me know if you like this, though. Like, is this just like gossip? Am I talking crap about? I'm giving you guys the inside look from my perspective. I'm trying to be open. Some of these people are dirty, man. I'm telling you, some of these people I've interviewed, and like, my relationships change. There's other people that I'm going to get into, and it's not about just dropping dirt, but I've got people on here that's coming up, and I've talked about it before, that have threatened to sue me if I don't down, you know what I'm saying, delete their episodes or whatever. People have threatened to sue me. That's not cool. And they still want to be friends. They say, you know what, but I believe in your podcast. I love what you're doing. Love to come back on. No, you are through. You cut your head off. You're done. You can't threaten my livelihood, threaten my family, threaten to take my food. You're threatening to turn my lights off, bro. If you sue me, I don't have nothing. You're trying to take what I have. That's, you crossed the line, but you still want to be friends. You still want to come on a podcast in the future. No, you're done, bro. Have fun. Do your thing. But I can't entertain that. So anyway, I'll talk a little bit more about that one. Some of you guys already know because I've talked about it openly before. I hope that if you're listening to this and you heard some podcasts or some stories that intrigued you, to go back and browse through the archives. It blows my mind that there's people who are listening 100 episodes in and you've heard all of them. You've been with me the whole time. Like, that blows my mind that people say, yeah, I've heard every episode. I'm ready for more. It's like, wow. Part of me's thinking about going live every day. Maybe try it for a week, see what happens. Do a podcast a day. That'd be hard. That'd be a challenge, but it could be done. I'm thinking about it. So 100 episodes in. I hope that we can get to 100 patrons by the 100th episode, because it's going to be released. If you're listening to this live, it's not released. But if you're listening to this on the podcast, it's already released. So I'm going to do it either tomorrow or Monday. Hopefully we can get to 100. I only need 3 more patrons. If you're listening to this live and you want to support what I'm doing and become a patron, you get access to a whole bunch of stuff. It's getting really cool. School of the Mystics, the new music, all of the cool stuff that we're doing. Join our online community. We'll be live tonight. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. We're 2 hours and 23 minutes in of TruthSeekah talking about his past shows. My voice is almost gone out, guys. So, yeah. Chris says tonight will be 100. Amen. Tonight is 100. I'm believing too. And I want to talk about that 100th episode too. So I'll do this again. Whether I do it tomorrow, I may come back tomorrow and finish this. We'll see what's up. Tomorrow is Friday, Good Friday too. So I may do it. We'll see what's up. So I love you guys. Thank you guys for supporting my work. You guys mean so much to me. I'm excited about what's to come. And those people who I was talking crap about, don't tell them. Keep this between me and you. I love you guys. I'm joking. Peace, peace. Shalom.
Your way so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine, so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.